I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting on August 1st at a little late, 6:35. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Light,
Present.
Commissioner Boswell, Commissioner Craig,
Present.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Present.
Commissioner Conroy, Commissioner Lamb. Here. Chairperson Hazeltine.
I'm here, thank you. Okay, and a salute to the flag. We can all stand. And go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the order of the agenda
Motion to approve the order of agenda.
and a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Blue folder items, these are additional backup materials. The blue folder items are additional backup material to administrative reports and/or public comments received after the printing and distribution of the agenda packet for receive and file.
Motion to accept and file blue folder items.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the next part is the consent calendar, and there's only one thing. We have to approve the affidavit for the posting for the Planning Commission meeting. That was July 18th, 2024. Do I have a motion for that? To accept?
I'll accept it.
Are
Motion to
we?
accept.
Second.
Okay. Are we, is that what we're doing? You're laughing. Would anybody like to, there's nothing to change. Okay, we're going to approve the consent calendar. Great. Okay, all
We have
those
to
in
vote.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, the next part is the public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on the agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered under this section first. Okay, so if any of you want to talk on anything other than the J1, this would be your time. Is there anybody out there? Okay, and then is there anybody online?
There are 5 e-attendees online.
Is there anybody that wanted to speak on this, on the non-agenda items, or is that for J1?
No one has their hand raised, so for J1.
Thank you, Jamal. Okay, so we'll move on to the public hearing. Can I get a motion to, we have a public hearing for consideration of an exception declaration and conditional use permit. Oh, no.
No, that's last one.
That's last month's. Pardon me. Hold on, I'll get it. Hold on.
Here.
Thank you.
Right here.
That's J1.
Okay, a public hearing to introduce updates to the city's general plan, land use, open space, and consideration noise and safety elements. Motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
And a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, great. Okay, we probably have staff presentation. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Sean Scully, Planning Manager. So tonight's item is our first public hearing on the general plan update. We're looking at 5 of our elements in the general plan. So the slide deck's it's 30 plus slides. So we got quite a bit of information to go through, a little bit of history, how we got here, little recap on that. A lot of work has gone into this to get to this point. And then tonight, the focus is on the land use element, open space and conservation element, noise and safety elements, and particularly the goals and policies within those elements. So we have available tonight all those policies we can throw up, but on the screen, but we'll go ahead and dive in right now. So a couple of announcements to start off. So today we actually have our general plan update environmental impact report that just was released today. The comment period is actually a 47-day comment period just because of where it falls on a weekend after 45 days. It runs from August 1st today and ends on September 16th. If anybody wishing to make a comment on that, it must be submitted in writing. We have an email address up on the screen there. There's also the email address on the website. It's generalplaneir@redondo.org. Also today, we've posted on the website the July version of the general plan draft document. And really the only difference there, a couple of corrections to the land use definitions table, the CN designation and the coastal commercial designation. And then there's also the completed noise contour map. That's figure 5.2. So that's the only difference between the January version of the general plan and the version that we just put up on the website today. And we will be accepting comments again on the Conveo platform on the website, starting again today on that July 2024 version. So just schedule forward. I threw up there our first meeting that we had on the general plan update, which was June 20th. We had a very high level introduction to the document. Tonight's meeting is our first public hearing item. This is a special meeting of the Planning Commission. We have our scheduled regular meeting August 15th. That's a public hearing as well. And at that meeting, we'll, in addition to any follow-up discussions we want to have on the general plan document itself, we'll be introducing the zoning ordinance amendments and amendments to the local coastal program that we're required to do to make all the documents consistent. Then we have our final Planning Commission meeting, public hearing at our regular meeting in September, on September 19th. That'll conclude the Planning Commission's involvement with the document, and you'll be making a formal recommendation to the City Council. And then in October, we're scheduled to have all our City Council meetings. So just a little bit how we got here and the extent to the work we've done to get here. There was a lot of public outreach along the way. Numerous opportunities we took since beginning this back in 2017 to get the word out, email blasts, cable crawls, online surveys. We were at various events over the years. I think the biggest outreach effort came from the, I'll skip this slide for just a sec, was our General Plan Advisory Committee. That group of individuals over the course of 6 years, and their names are all up here. I think I saw a few members out in the audience tonight. We've got a couple on the dais as well. They put in some serious hours and work over that time period and created the document that we're looking at tonight. Again, this is, if you look at that second item, we just did some rough calcs, and I know it was way more than this, but 125 hours of approximate time spent by each GPAC member over the years working on this project. And I know it was way more than that for many of them. We started looking at just 2 elements, and we ended up opening up 5 elements as we went through the process. The GPAC kind of became the location where city council, when something started to boil to the surface that had an advanced planning element to it, it got thrown to the GPAC, and their plate just kept growing. And but again, staying on the outreach a little bit, there was a process we went through on GPAC where they became ambassadors on the general plan update, and they were tasked with going to various groups that are very active in the city. So this is just a list of all the different organizations and groups that GPAC members individually reached out to tell them what was going on and get input. So this is just like, this is a summary of all the GPAC products, if you will. They developed the city's draft vision statement and guiding principles that were since approved by the council. They did all the work on the Artesian Aviation Corridor Area Plan. That was since adopted by the city council. They updated the land use designations, the map and the element, and the new goals and the policies. This is just a little summary of some of the highlights. I'll get into those later. But then they also went through the open space and conservation element, painstakingly through all the land use policies and goals and implementation measures for all the elements, land use, open space and conservation, and then noise and safety. So these are, I won't go through it, but it was the vision, the general plan vision and guiding principles really became kind of the foundation that guided a lot of the discussions that the GPAC held. And these were the topics that the city began to coalesce around, and the GPAC began to identify as critical to kind of the touchstone for everything they started to work on. So what is a general plan? This is, the blueprint for the city or the Constitution. The life of the general plan is, for this general plan update, will be to the year 2050. That's our horizon year. It's composed of several required elements: land use, housing, transportation, open space, conservation, noise, safety. Those aren't listed up there, but there's 7 required elements. The general plan must be consistent internally with itself and all our other planning documents, so particularly the zoning ordinance, our zoning ordinances for the coastal as well as inland, and the local coastal program, the coastal land use plan, and those documents all have to be consistent. So the work at our next meeting is going to be all about the changes that we have to make in those other documents that we'll bring before this body. So the elements being updated: land use, open space conservation, safety, and noise. The elements that are not being updated are the utilities element, the solid waste management and recycling element, transportation and circulation element, which did have an update in 2021, and then the housing element, which was recently approved by the city and certified by the state in 2022. So that's a segue to something that's really the driver of a lot of the changes that we're making to the general plan: land use and zoning. We have a certified and compliant housing element as of July 5th, 2022. It includes policies and programs that further affordable housing production in the city. They also are RENA allocation from SCAG, the Southern California Association of Governments, and that came from the state, was 2,490 units, and then they're broken down into income categories. And what we had to do was accommodate those units, at least in capacity. We had to have zoning that could accommodate for all these different categories of affordable housing. And that bar is set at 30 dwelling units per acre. So we had to create, we didn't have enough of that category of zoning. So we've had to identify sites that we had to change the zone, and that's what we're going to be doing to accommodate our RENA allocation. So we've created an overlay zone to allow residential uses at a maximum density of 55 dwelling units per acre and a minimum density of 20. And we'll take a look at those sites tonight. And this is where they're at. We have housing sites, the North Tech, which is in the upper right on the other side of the freeway, the Kingsdale neighborhood, which is adjacent to the Galleria just east, south of the Transit Center, which is kind of that brownish area on the right-hand side of the exhibit. And then the 190th Street sites, those blue sites running along 190th Street. And then the South Bay Marketplace, which is right, I realize I have a cursor here, in green. That's the South Bay Marketplace site. And then we'll go to the south sites, and that are the FedEx MU1 residential overlay site, which is down near the Legato development. So in order for us to maintain a compliant housing element, and we've shared this, with the commission a couple of times now, to maintain this, our compliant housing element, HCD requires the city to update the general plan, zoning ordinances, and LCP by February 12th, 2025. So we have to get through, adopt the general plan update with the new land use designations to accommodate these housing sites by February 12th, 2025. That means we also have to have all the zoning updates as well. Now, in addition to the actual housing sites, we also have to, there's a number of programs in the housing element, and you'll see these next week or at our August 15th meeting, but those are additional zoning ordinance amendments that we are required to make in order to stay compliant with our housing element. Now, if we're not able to get this done in time by that February 12th deadline, then there's the consequences is termed builder's remedy projects. And those are residential or mixed use projects that include at least 20% lower income or 100% moderate income units. And those projects that could be submitted by a developer do not have to comply with local zoning development standards. So they can really go anywhere. So, yes.
Just a quick question for our audience here. How high could they go? If they don't have to conform to any categories, zoning categories, how high could they go?
I don't know the answer to that question.
But they could go many stories high.
They don't have to comply with our development standards, so yes.
They could be big and tall in any zone. Could be
any
an
location.
R1 zone, a single-family zone, could be
Right.
anywhere.
Absolutely.
Right. Just
So,
wanted to-
we are under a recent court decision that Article 27 is preempted by state law as it pertains to the implementation of our housing element. So that we are still a lot to be determined on that issue, but I'll go ahead and move on from that at the moment. So getting into summary of proposed land use definitions, this is, and what we'll do now is we'll start to get into the actual land use element and the various elements. And there'll be kind of a summary of some of the changes that are occurring. And then we'll go into the elements. But this slide is really just is summarizing the various changes that are happening to our land use designations. We've refined the definitions. We've added a commercial neighborhood designation. We've increased FARs along Artesia and the aviation corridors. Those are going from 0.6 to 1.5. We've increased FARs in most of the industrial categories, and we'll go through those as well around Northrop Grumman. And we've raised the RH density, the residential high density, from 28 to 30. And that's one of our housing element requirements. And there's a few properties along PCH for that. And then we've added a new residential overlay definition. And again, that's required to comply with state housing law. So how is what we're doing different from our current general plan? We've got, this is just a real high level summary of additional units that could occur through the implementation over the long term to the horizon year. An additional 259 units, 624 ADUs, and then some additional square footage in non-residential. So before we get into the goals and policies, just real quick, what are goals and policies and implementation actions? And this slide just breaks down kind of the hierarchy. Goals are statements of desired future conditions towards which efforts, regulations, and use of resources are directed. So they're very high level desired future conditions. And policies are statements that guide decision-making and specify an intended level of public commitment on a subject. And those are much more detailed. They're broken down to try to create and drive certain types of development and certain outcomes. So we have a number of those that in all of our elements. And then there's the implementation actions, and those are really specific actions to take place in the next, short, medium, longer term to make concrete progress towards the specific goals and policies. So we really will be using those implementation measures internally, as a city when the city is setting its strategic planning efforts. Departments will be that are tasked to implement the policies and goals that are within the general plan elements. So they're very, very specific. So just some highlights to the land use element, and then we'll start, I'll give you an example of some of the land use policies that we have. And then we've got all those land use policies, we're able to put those up if there's specific questions about a specific policy. But the land use element, we've updated the land use map, we've updated the definitions. We also have now some special policy areas, and those are new, and we have slides for each one of those. There's, I think, 7 of them. We have new health and vitality goals and policies. That's a new section to our land use element. Environmental and economic goals, sustainability goals and policies, those are new. And then historic preservation goals and policies, and those are new as well. So this is just, page 1 of 10 pages of land use goals and policies. And I just wanted to throw this one up there. There's 14 policies for the goal of balance, where we're trying to, create land uses that work well together, that provide all the services and meet all the needs of the community. So there's, these are a very general, broad goal, and then the specific policies, as you'll know, policy LU 1.4, jobs to housing balance. That was something through the process we discovered we were really out of balance. We have a certain professional income resident in Redondo Beach, but we don't have a lot of jobs to match the residents of Redondo Beach here in Redondo Beach. So trying to get some balance in the jobs with the housing. So then, and I'm pausing because there's a lot of slides that I have on the side that have all the policies. But before we leave the land use element, these, I want to just quickly run through the special policy areas that we have. These were targeted areas that the GPAC identified as wanting to try to enhance, the character and culture that exists in each of these areas. And we've got Special Policy Area 1, that's North Redondo Tech District. This is our job center. So jobs and some retail nodes and a little bit of residential flexibility is part of this special policy area for this location. This is the Artesia Boulevard Special Policy Area. And this is, we've done a lot of work on Artesia and aviation corridors. This is just further, I guess, direction to keep our attention on that corridor to try to revitalize it and integrate it more with the surrounding neighborhood than what it's traditionally largely been oriented towards the commuter traffic. So creating more places, increasing access, parking, and really focus on economic development there. Then same thing for Aviation Boulevard, very similar. They're the connected corridors that make up the ACAP. And then Special Policy Area 4 is our Galleria. That's our kind of our regional commercial hub. It's also where we have one of our transit, where we have our transit center now, and hopefully a transit station later with the Metro line out on Hawthorne Boulevard. We'll see. And then that's really the focus of that special policy area. And then we have our PCH corridor, and PCH and Torrance Boulevard corridors. They're really our gateways from the north coming down PCH and from the south, and then Torrance Boulevard as well from the east. That it's smaller scale, neighborhood character. There's housing opportunities along there, and some of the religious facilities that we've had one recently turn over some of their property, and we have a project coming through that will come before the Planning Commission pretty soon. And then neighborhood connectivity is really big, and pedestrian improvements on this corridor. And then this 6 is PCH South, and let me see, and then Riviera Village. PCH South is actually in that prior category. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the Riviera Village Special Policy Area. And this is, it's really trying to enhance and grow the great culture and character of that area, and preserving that with quality design, and really focusing on the mix of uses to keep supporting what's happening down there. So that's been designated as a special policy area as well. So, that's the land use element discussion that we have for you tonight. Again, we've got policies specific, all the policies if the commission wishes to discuss any of those. So I'm just going to move ahead to open space and conservation element. Highlights. Now, this was we started with 2 elements. It was this element and the land use element. And parks they're a hot topic in Redondo Beach. We're park deficient. And so there's been a real emphasis to try to understand how we can grow more parkland in the city. We're a built out city, so it's super challenging. So we're very creative now in trying to integrate usable public open space into developments as they come forward, especially larger scale developments. So we've really the GPAC really honed in on park definitions. They looked at park deficient areas with heat maps. They looked at new opportunities for public spaces. You know, we don't count as parkland our Pier or King Harbor or Esplanade. They're not, you know, we're not crediting those towards our park ratio, but they are areas that do provide, you know, recreation. They do provide, you know, open space. So we're trying to look at them that way and enhance those elements of those locations. Park access and connections were really, that element really looks at, you know, how do we get to park safely? How do we, you know, make the connections from the community to the parks? And then public view sheds and scenic vistas, light pollution. These were new topic areas that got a lot of attention. We don't have protected views in Redondo, but we're now going to start looking at public view sheds, you know, not preserving private views of individual properties as much as identifying locations that we feel or that the city feels are of importance to the public that you can see from a public location, and then trying to preserve those and making sure development doesn't infringe upon those view sheds. Conservation and coastal resources, a lot of effort was put into that. Our beach and bluff erosion and restoration, stormwater management, groundwater recharge, a lot of sustainability work has gone into that element, and a lot of policies that are all about sustainability. And then programs and funding, you know, that's trying to get park space is an expensive proposition. So there's a lot of policies, specific policies just for that. And then here's just one slide, you know, kind of gives you a sense of a goal, an open space and conservation goal. Well, this is an open space goal. We have a whole bunch of conservation driven goals and policies, but this one says our parkland standard, you know, and it identifies, you know, the standard that we have now is 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. We don't have that ratio, but that's, since we don't have that ratio in terms of how we assess our Quimby fees is what they're called, but we're able to charge at that, the fee is based on a 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 ratio. If we ever achieve that, if we get to that, then we can assess our Quimby fee at 5 acres per 1,000 population. So that would be a significant boost if we're able to get to that point. So that's all on, again, we have all the policies and goals and for the open space and conservation section available or element available. And then we have the noise element. And the noise element, this is it's really about a quality of life issue. You know, it's about protecting, you know, our residential communities from the noise that could be generated from adjacent commercial development, traffic noise. So, you know, and it identifies, you know, a decibel rating for the various land use categories and sets that limit. So that's really what the noise element is all about. And this is just a section, and we deal with it as a planning commission quite a bit when our projects come up. So we have actually not that many policies for noise. It's a pretty straightforward element, but this is one of the pages for that. And then safety element. This was reviewed by the city's Public Safety Commission. They looked at the draft safety element. They looked at the local hazard mitigation plan, which has since been adopted, vulnerability assessment, continuity of operations plan and emergency operations. And it's really, this whole element is about, protecting the community from hazardous events, natural and man-made. And we've mapped all sorts of geologic and seismic hazards, flood hazards. There's a lot of information about climate change, sea level rise, drought, heat and severe weather. It really goes into great detail about how those climate issues are going to impact the city and how we can address those and educate the public about those and ensure that we don't have the hazards coming up on us unexpectedly. And then here's just another example of goals and policies for the safety element. And again, we have all the goals and policies on the side if you want to bring any of those up. So that concludes staff's presentation. We've got recommendations here to take public testimony and discuss the land use, open space and conservation, noise and safety element goals and policies. It's a lot. We realize that. And then consider and vote on any recommendations that might come up in your discussions. Again, we're not making a recommendation to the council tonight, but this could be essentially the preliminary recommendation. And then we'll continue this public hearing to your regular meeting on August 15th. And we're available for questions and, yeah, all right.
Okay, before we get started, can we do the ex parte communication? Commissioner Lamb?
So yes, I have spoken with Director Weiner and Planning Manager Scully, Mayor Light, Commissioner Hazeltine, and members of the public.
And Commissioner Gaddis?
None.
And Commissioner Craig?
I spoke with Commissioner Light, Mayor Light. I got confused. Commissioner Light and Mayor Light, but not the same one.
And Mayor Light.
Several council members, Baji, Barrett, Narenheim, some school board members, Bung Cho, and also Rolf, who else I speak to? Just members of the general public.
Okay, great. And I spoke with Commissioner Lamb, Mayor Jim Light, the administration, and general public. Okay, so anybody that would like, oh, Commissioner Light, I apologize.
I have spoke with Commissioner Craig about the agenda tonight. That's it.
Okay. Anybody that would like to speak tonight, could you stand up and take the oath? If you plan on speaking, and just raise your hand. And you swear to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You agree? Okay, great. Okay, so do we have a list of who wanted to speak? Did we get some cards turned in? Why don't we go ahead and take public comment?
No.
We also have one attendee that would like to speak.
Okay. Rob, do we do these first?
I would do the E.
Okay, why don't we go ahead with the person online?
Hi, am I on? I can't tell from my side.
You are. Could you just state your name and where you're from?
Hi, Mark Nelson, Redondo Beach property owner. On behalf of the hundreds of folks that have put our stopbchd.com lawn signs out and corresponded with us, I have a few comments. We support the 0.75 FAR as the base for public institutional land use. It's appropriate to preserve the surrounding neighborhoods, land values, peace and quiet, and really health of the neighborhoods by reducing emissions, noise, and other health damages from overdevelopment. Regarding the city's increase to a 1.25 FAR on 2 parcels. We support that as well. The city of Redondo Beach provides its services to nearly 100% city residents, and therefore any damages that are incurred also are because of the benefits that are incurred. So the very high amount of residents makes that much easier. With regard to Beach City's health district's claim about spot zoning, it's flatly a lie. For anyone who hung in until the 4 a.m. or it might have been later meeting knows that the base 0.75 FAR was discussed long before the 1.25 FAR bonus for the city came up. So Beach Cities was never spot zoned. What really happened in the meeting was the 1.25 became a bonus for building facilities for residents of Redondo Beach. Beach City's future plans are from 80% to 95% non-resident services. So it bears no similarity to the city of Redondo Beach's balance of benefits and damages to Redondo Beach residents. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you. Okay, the first person up would be Jim Mueller. And then after that, we have Roseanne Taylor.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for allowing me to speak before you. I think it's a great thing in our country that we can do that. I'm here to speak
Your
about
name
chronically.
and where you're from. You're
Oh, I live on Matthews Avenue. I'm a voter and resident of Redondo Beach.
And your name, just for the record.
Jim Mueller. I'm here to speak about chronically vacant properties, and I think that's appropriate in terms of land use. And I actually read the general plan pretty closely with regard to that subject, and I found that in the existing land use estimates, there are about a total of 1,474 vacant properties in Redondo Beach. Now, when I spoke to you before, I had done a walk around in my neighborhood, and I had identified a little sample of about 6 of those properties, and all of them had been vacant for more than 2 years. So that's why I call them chronically vacant. And I noticed that in the council meeting, they were talking about the need for revenue because of the revenue bonds would impose such a burden on the community. And I did a study of the sample of vacant properties, chronically vacant properties, and I found out that there's quite a differential in the property tax level that those properties pay versus the other properties in the neighborhood. And if I totaled them up and applied the existing land use estimates for vacant properties, I find that the annual property tax revenue, if we just focus on 25% of those vacant properties, would be about $1 million each year. Not only that, if those vacant properties were occupied by families who spent money in the community, their students attended schools in the community, it would be even more revenue. And so I think it's worthwhile to approach that problem. And other communities have approached that problem, including our neighboring Manhattan Beach. They have a code change that they put in, especially focused on vacant properties. And it's not a particularly onerous code, but it does really put pressure on these people to do something with their properties that benefits the community. And so I submitted a proposed code change about a month ago to our Redondo Beach Code to address this problem. And I hope it will be considered. So far, I have not received any response. And I must say, the city attorney's office has been particularly unresponsive to this problem and to my approaches to this problem. And I really have a serious complaint with them. They are very unresponsive.
Thank you, Jim. Did that get put in the blue folder by chance as a blue folder item, your recommendation?
I don't know, I gave a copy of it to, I think I gave a copy of it to the planning
So
people
could you-
and to the clerk.
we have a meeting in 2 more weeks. Could you do that? Could you put it, submit it for the blue folder so that we could all read it? And then that way we would comment on it.
Okay.
That'd be helpful.
How do I do that?
Yes, great
If
question.
he emails that proposal that you're referring to Plan Redondo at redondo.org, that'll get automatically into our blue folder items.
Okay,
And
great.
make sure that you say you want it included in the blue folder items.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, the next one is Roseanne Taylor. If you could come up, please.
Roseanne Taylor. I live in Redondo Beach. I live across the street from Beach City Health District on Diamond. And myself and my neighbors have all been writing in asking that you don't allow the Beach City Health District to have a FAR of 1.25. We think it's not, we don't want to see that kind of development next door to our homes. It's going to be, what's proposed is a huge 6-story building that builds out to the edge of the campus, right up to our street. And we just don't want that kind of commercial development. What they're proposing is a private development, commercial. It's not a public development. It's commercial development for profit. And we think that it's the FAR of 0.75 is reasonable for that property and would ask you to hold it to that. We've been asking for relief from this proposed development for years, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of email to that effect, and you have some new email in your folder this time, I'm sure, from all of us. So that's very simply all we're asking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Roseanne. Okay, next person is Joseph Larson, and after that, we'll see or hear from Joan Brand.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joseph Larson from Rutan and Tucker on behalf of Beach Cities Health District. Our office also submitted a letter on behalf of the school district.
You can raise that podium if you'd like. There's a little over to the side.
That's
to
right.
Switch.
The proposed update to the general plan affects Beach City Health District's campus, which provides essential health services to the community and the surrounding area. It's currently zoned as community facilities and has a general plan use designation as public or institutional. And the general plan update proposes to impose a 0.75 FAR, floor area ratio on the property that does not currently exist. Currently, the property has a lot more flexibility in terms of its potential. The impact of that FAR limits the ability of the district to modernize and update its currently seismically deficient facilities, and potentially will result in a reduction of services, essential services to the community, and financial insolvency for the district. We request that the 0.75 FAR be applied uniform, or excuse me, that the 0.75 FAR be eliminated and a 0.25 FAR be universally applied across all properties with a similar designation of public and institutional. There are a number of legal concerns with the proposed FAR of 0.75. Primarily, it's not uniformly applied across all similarly designated properties. 2, it's arbitrary and it lacks a rational basis and attacks essentially a particular project in the campus and therefore violates due process. Its unequal treatment compared to similarly situated properties is a violation of equal protection and results in spot zoning. It will result, as I said, in essential health services to the community. There are a number of goals and policies that are in the general plan that it is inconsistent with, particularly policy LU 1.13, LU 4.2, and LU 4.7, all of which provide for cooperation with public facilities and particularly health facilities. Again, I would request that you review our letters that were submitted and that are included in the blue folder. And with that, thank you.
Mr. Lexton, could you clarify, what FAR are you looking for? Did you say
0.25 be universally applied, again, applied to all properties that are designated as public or institutional.
0.254, I think you said? I just wanted to double check.
1.25, I'm sorry. I said, sorry, 1.25.
1.25, okay.
Yeah, if I was unclear, if I
going,
misspoke.
where did
Yeah, no, 1.25 universally
Okay, I
applied.
hadn't seen that anywhere. Okay.
That's currently what is applied to other properties that are with that designation, particularly the city's civic center.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Ms. Walsh, I have one quick question.
One second.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Oh, I can't. I
Yeah.
just want
No.
to see, you said you represented BCHD. That's how I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
confirm.
BCHD, right? You
only-
represent?
Or do you, because we have a letter from, on your behalf, on behalf of the school district. Do you represent both clients?
So the school district also, we submitted a letter on behalf of the school district.
Okay.
Okay, that's, sorry.
Thank you,
That's all I wanted to
thank you.
ask.
Okay. Next is Joan Brand. Hi. Thank you.
My name is Joan Edelman Brand, and I've lived on Goodman Avenue, Mr. Obaji's district. I've been there since 1995. This is an email that I sent to the city council in March, and it says, where did this new 0.75 floor area ratio for public/institutional properties in the Redondo Beach General Plan updates come from? Why was it not reviewed with the General Plan Advisory Committee? And I asked that question because I got an email from a person on that committee who said it had never been reviewed with them. And that was back in March. Page 2.11 of the Redondo Beach General Plan states that aside from the City Hall complex and the police annex, which have a FAR of 1.25, all other public/institutional properties are subject to Planning Commission design review. Therefore, there will be no standards for other public/institutional properties, just arbitrary judgments. In reviewing the 2.1 general plan land use designations, I could find no other categories of land use designations for homes, commercial properties, et cetera, where the FAR is subject to Planning Commission design review. Only to these properties, the public/institutional. Why is that? And also, why is the Beach Cities Health District, which performs a valued public service, being subjected to a FAR of 0.75 that other public institutions are not? Beach Cities Health District states that the proposed 0.75 FAR equals less than the Phase 1 of the district's Healthy Living Campus Plan, significantly limiting the ability to modernize our campus and would compromise the ability to provide preventive health programs and services to the community. My husband, Irv Brand, and I bought our home in Redondo in 1995, as I said earlier. He died last year at the age of 94. Neither one of us ever thought that he would live that long. And he attributed that, and we both believed actually, that he lived such a long and full life because of the unique programs that were offered by Beach Cities Health District that kept him healthy through food choices, exercise, and gave us a social group that became family to us. I plan to live in my Redondo Beach home for another 20 or 25 years, God willing, and hope to rely on Beach Cities Health District's unique programs to help me achieve this goal. I recommend that all public/institutional
Is there a
properties
second to extend?
have a uniform FAR of 1.25.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lisa Bennett. And then after then, Jacqueline Sun.
My name's Lisa Bennett. I'm a homeowner resident in Redondo Beach since 2000. I too have used the services of the Beach Cities Health District, and it does, in my opinion, provide very valuable community services. And in listening to the Planning Commission,
Planning Director.
Planning Director.
Yeah.
And the goals for Redondo Beach, we're deficient in open space, and the Beach City Health District Healthy Living Campus has a rather large open space component. So I think it would be to our benefit and advantage to allow this Healthy Living Campus to realize its plan and not change the FAR so that it's unable to come to fruition. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Bennett. Oh, come on, sorry.
Good evening, I'm Jacqueline Sun, the Director of Wellbeing Services with Beach Cities Health District. As you've heard, the Health District is concerned with the disparate treatment across public and institutional land designations, with the city giving itself 1.25 FAR in certain facilities while limiting Beach Cities Health District's campus to 0.75 FAR. The Health District is a public agency. We've been serving this community for close to 70 years, and I think the story of the Health District is one of us being able to adapt to meet the health needs of this community. We did that when the community needed a hospital in the 1950s. We did it again in the 90s when we transitioned to focus on preventative health. And we did it again when we brought the Blue Zones Project to the community in 2010 to change the culture of health and well-being in the community. We did it when we pivoted to address COVID-19, brought testing and vaccination sites to the city of Redondo Beach. And again, with our newest program, All Cove Beach Cities, when we saw a pressing need for youth mental health services, and we do it in collaborating with the city on reducing substance use through effective policy. I mention this because we don't know what the future is going to bring, what the public health landscape is going to be, what the next public health crisis is going to be. So I question why it would limit our ability to be flexible in addressing the needs and serving the health needs of this community, and by putting limits on our floor area ratio for our campus, especially when there's already a design review process through the CUP and this Planning Commission. The 0.75 FAR limits our ability to move forward with phase 1 of our Healthy Living Campus project and prevents us from modernizing our campus. It compromises our ability to deliver programs and services to the community. And for those reasons, I urge that you consider a uniformity for the public institutional land designations and make it 1.25 across the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Joan Deal, I believe. Joan, it says. Jane, sorry about that. Jane Deal.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Jane Deal from Redondo Beach, a Beach Cities Health District board member. I was on planning also, as you are sitting there tonight, so I know a little bit about the general plan and how long it's been in the works. You all do a lot of work for the city. I'm here to discuss the disparate floor to area ratio, giving property designation P different FAR ratios. Presently, the city civic center complex and 200 PCH, which is the police department, have a 1.25 FAR. Many people do not know 200 PCH is leased from Redondo Beach Unified School District, so it is not a city-owned property. I know this because I was on the school board when that agreement was made for a 99-year lease. The disparity is due to the fact that BCHD has a FAR of 0.7, We serve 30,000 citizens of Redondo Beach and hope to consider to increase these services as the senior population grows. Without being able to remodel the 64-year-old campus, we will be reducing services and not expanding services, nor will we be able to add the 2 acres of open space that we've planned. The city's policy, which was referenced before, but I would like to read it, states the city should seek to incorporate health considerations into land use planning. Also, LU 4.7 states that to build and maintain partnerships with healthcare, care providers, health promoting nonprofit and community-based organizations to evaluate and implement land use projects in a manner that improves community health. Once again, does BCH come to people's mind when they rose to the occasion to help Redondo Beach citizens during COVID? We did testings, we did shots, we were taking care of the seniors by bringing them food and making sure that they got their shots, and helped cities with the Safe City program. There's a simple solution mentioned by others. Beach Cities Health District should have a FAR of 1.25. Planning Commission has a CUP process that it needs to make changes. I'm also curious because I believe the fire stations have a FAR of 0.75. I'm not sure why the citizens of Redondo Beach would want to vote for a bond that will limit the ability to improve their fire stations. If you change the fire stations to 1.25 and not BCHD, this is truly a disparate treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Holly Osborne up next. And then after Holly, it'll be Mary Ewell, pardon me.
Okay. Good evening, Holly Osborne, District 5, resident there in District 5 since 1978. So I have 2 topics that I want to bring up on tonight's Planning Commission. One is open space and canopy related issues, and the second one is design standards for multifamily units in R2 and R3. Now on the first one, open space and canopy related issues. There is a bill, AB 2251, that was passed in 2022. This bill requires urban areas to plan to increase their tree canopy. The goal is to increase by 10% by the year 2035. I would like to know what steps the Planning Commission is taking to ensure that new development has sufficient places to plant trees and not be total pavement. A tree canopy is very important in this area of climate change. For example, just a couple blocks from me, a temperature of 74 degrees F was recorded in the shade and 87 in the sun. That 13-degree difference is the difference between a small kid being able to play outside or not being able to play outside, or an elderly person being able to walk comfortably or not being able to walk. What steps are you taking to ensure that the neighborhoods are walkable? What steps are you taking to ensure that multifamily housing does not build so close to the street there's no room to plant a tree? And what steps are you taking to ensure that 10% increase can be met? And do you know what the tree coverage is now? Because if you don't know what it is now, you won't know if you get 10% by 2035. And I sent you part of the bill. Okay, now the second thing is design standards for multifamily units. I have become concerned that the mega 2 on a lots that have been going up in North Redondo. I remember that 20 to 30 years ago when there were design standards in addition to setback and height requirements in these zoning areas, that the Planning Commission took a very dim view of builders who submitted plans for 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms houses, 2 on a lot. 2 of those homes were a single-family home had been before. And I remember a planning commissioner saying that they could see right through what the developer was doing, building rooming houses and not houses for families. Such plans were rejected. And can you imagine the parking nightmare that would have created? So now some of these so-called homes are being built. Can you not introduce an objective design standard to either forbid this or strongly discourage it? I have some addresses in mind, but I don't want to single out a builder. So perhaps the building department could check on these houses and report on how rapidly they are not selling, they are not family housing. I'm watching the market. Thank you.
Holly, I have a question, quick. On AB 2251, did you say it requires a 10% increase by 2030?
2035.
2035. Okay. Thank you,
Okay,
Holly.
Mary Ewell.
Mary Ewell, as I said, from the neighborhood of Beach Cities Health District. I support the city's proposal, the city's proposed 0.75 floor area ratio for public institutions and oppose modifying the FAR for Beach Cities Health District. I oppose BCHD's request for spot zoning on the hospital site of 1.25 FAR. BCHD should be required to maintain its 0.75 FAR. At 80% to 95% non-resident services for the Healthy Living Campus, BCHD cannot be eligible for any greater FAR than 0.75 in order to minimize the damage to the surrounding neighborhoods that are largely 0.5 FAR or equivalent. I am particularly concerned about the pedestrian and bicycle traffic of 5 local surrounding schools using the over-trafficked Prospect corridor, already congested by commuters. Lastly, the basis for establishing a need for both the assisted living and mental health building is a needs assessment survey that was never undertaken in the Beach Cities. Beach Cities Health District has based its proposals on commercial predictions of a population contradicting stats like AARP's survey that show that the overwhelming majority of seniors want to age in place. Regarding earthquake liability, I'm reading the wrong one. Earthquake liability facilities. I visited the Beach Cities Health District buildings and saw no signs indicating that there was seismic vulnerability, which is a legal requirement to post the seismic liability in a medical building such as a hospital where I work. The number of medical hospital doctors renting space for their offices and the number of hospitals that they represent would not subject their liability and their patients to an added
Motion to extend 30
earthquake.
seconds.
Second.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I believe it's Dempsey Nelson, is that right? And then that'll be Stuart Brilliant after that. Do we know him?
That's correct. Thank you very much. Dempsey Nelson, Hermosa Beach resident and homeowner for 41 years.
And welcome to Redondo.
Thank you very much. And I'm a grateful recipient of the services of Beach Cities Health District. I'm here tonight to urge you to support the 1.25 FAR for all public institutions, including the Beach Cities Health District's Prospect property. Redondo Beach has a magnificent opportunity to get rid of the decrepit, unsafe monstrosity of the old hospital and replace it with a center for people to come for good health, good body health, good mind health, good spirit health, which is everything that I've experienced at the Beach Cities Health District. As has been suggested by others, it's a place for socialization, not only the specific services, but a place to come to and be with others and share healthy experiences. As a senior with gray hair, I can tell you, the Center for Health and Fitness is an example of something that it's been suggested that the private sector provides services that the Beach Cities Health District, it's not needed. I can tell you that I'm intimidated going to a gym where 20 and 30-somethings all oiled up, aggressive. There's a healthier, inclusive, intergenerational atmosphere at the Beach Cities Health District. I would hate for us to lose that. When we talk about open space, that's in the plan. That's part of the plan for, again, getting rid of this decrepit old hospital and the concrete that's there, providing the open space. In terms of the new buildings that are proposed, it meets the sustainability goals. I know that the Beach Cities Health District has incorporated, turns out he's a Hermosa Beach resident, Robert Fortunato of the Green Idea House, who's been examining the wasted energy of that building. And anything new that's built there will be built to a standard that I know former Mayor Bill Brand, because I knew Bill before he even thought about becoming a councilman. I knew him from our lifelong commitment to environmentalism and sustainability. Everything in the plan for the Healthy Living Campus will meet those goals. Again, coming back to the idea of community, some have suggested that there isn't a need for a brick and mortar place or a place to come to. I really suggest otherwise. And probably the day it hit me most of all was when there was an open house there offering examples of everything that's there. And Congressman Liu and his wife spent the entire day there, and they were overwhelmed with joy to see how many residents were coming and enjoying that place. And I'll say one more thing. It's talked about the folks that might be coming from outside of the beach cities, actually, to take advantage of the services there. Good health knows no boundaries. Just like when we fought oil in Hermosa Beach, there are no boundaries. We all do better when we all do better. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, and Susan?
Susan Brilliant, resident of Redondo Beach. Thank you for allowing me to give my perspective. I am in opposition to setting a 0.75 FAR cap on the Beach Cities Health District campus. The Beach Cities Health District provides much-needed health and wellness services to the community. As a Blue Zone preventive health innovator, the district serves as a model for cities and districts around the world. Limiting the district's freedom to grow would be a devastating blow to BCHD's plan for the future. My family and my neighbors support the development of the Healthy Living Campus, including Alcove Young People Center, a community wellness pavilion, and maybe in the future an aquatic center, because we all love to swim. And the Center for Health and Fitness, and space for older adults, residential care, and most importantly, that open space that we're all longing for. I'm a volunteer at the Beach Cities Health District, and I've really benefited from all its programs. If the city of Redondo Beach sets a 0.75 FAR on BCHD, it would significantly limit BCHD's ability to modernizing the campus, and it would compromise its ability to provide preventive health services to the community for decades to come. So please do not set a FAR cap on the BCHD. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Okay. Let's see. Delia Belchi? Beachy?
Hi everybody, Delia Becci, District 2, many years homeowner living in the city of Redondo. Anyway, any development, in particular in public land, must be 0.75 maximum FAR. Why? Because overbuild brings pollution, noise, excessive transit, no room for open spaces, naming very few of the many reasons that as a consequences affect very badly the quality of life of residents. I repeat, I strongly recommend 0.75 FAR that also will help to keep under control the fake healthy project that pursue Beach City Health District that has taken in, that's among my strong support, 0.75, because we need to keep the overbill under control for the quality of life of our residents. And the project that came other people to support from other cities because they don't want in my backyard should not be allowed. Only the people from are affected, the city of Redondo, should be allowed to talk about the decision that plan to do planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Bob Pilzer.
Good evening, Bob Pinsler, Redondo Beach. As a full-time member of the GPAC, the FAR that's listed in the document for public zones was included in our votes in our group several times. If they didn't read the documents, that's not your problem. The reason for the 0.75 FAR in non-civic areas is neighborhood compatibility. If BCHD wishes to build an RCFE, one needs only to look at Kensington, a successful privately developed property. Its actual FAR reportedly works out to 0.55. Do we really want a facility 2.5 times that bulk on a properly in a primarily residential area? 0.75 FAR is actually generous to BCHD. However, due to their need to cover up the monumental mistakes they have made in wasting the nest egg provided to them by their previous hospital tenant, they are asking the city to save them from themselves. This is not the city's responsibility. Your responsibility is to our residents and maintaining their quality of life and zoning decisions. The GPAC mulled over this plan for 6 years. Some of us have the scars to prove it. The fact that this does not fit into the district's financial schemes is not your issue. The people who live in Redondo Beach are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Come on up.
Georgette Gantner, District 2. I just want to clarify a few things from what people are saying. I'm not sure if people are really familiar with the plan of exactly how the buildings are being placed on this property. First of all, the bond issue is going to take down 514. It is gone. It's being replaced by 2 acres of open space. Everybody needs to know that. 2 acres of, that building is gone, 2 acres of space. The CHF needs to be relocated. That is a point of, that's something they have to work with. But in favor of the CHF, it's invaluable. It's bursting at the seams. We definitely need that, the CHF to be replaced. Now, what they're talking about for the new building is phase 2. Who knows when that'll be? Who knows how long? But the building that exists right now is a big, bulky building that's been there for 70 years. And I'm not sure people had moved in when that was there. Maybe they moved in afterward. It's always been there. The building that will replace it will be beautiful, environmentally friendly. It's not, I don't think it's going to increase traffic. People say that all the time. And it's in the back of the property. It's not off of Diamond. I don't even think people living on Diamond are going to see the building. From what I've seen from the plans, it's in the back of the property by, like, adjacent to Vaughn's. That's a huge piece of property. It's like 11 acres. So people really, really, really need to think about what they're saying and envision and talk to people in beach cities and find out where that's being placed before they say, you know, go crazy. I understand it's big, but the thing that's there now is big. This will be an improvement. I believe it will be an improvement, and we'll have a new CHF, I hope also. So That's my 2
Can
cents.
I ask you which building? We've got the hospital and then we've got the medical.
Well, the new building that they proposed.
What's coming down?
In phase 2, 514.
Oh, I don't know, 514, the hospital?
That's the hospital.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you, thank you.
Yeah, you didn't know? You weren't sure?
I know that's the hospital.
Yeah, that's 514.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thing in the middle.
I'm glad that you're keeping track of that for us. Okay, anybody else?
We have 2 or 3 attendees that would like to speak.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Maria.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. I'm a resident of Redondo Beach, and I'm a big supporter of the work that Beach Cities has done here, especially for youth mental health. I use those facilities all the time. My doctor's there. So our family uses that facility quite a bit. We're not aging yet, but it's nice to know that it's there for us as we age. And so when Beach Cities has come out and said that they need the 1.25 FAR, I support that. So that's just what I wanted to say. I'm in support of the 1.25 that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person online?
We have Laura.
Laura, your name and where you're from? Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead and state your name and where you're from.
Yep, Laura Duke. I am in Redondo Beach. And good evening, commissioners and city staff. I just wanted to say that that this FAR of 0.75 versus the 1.25, I don't even really feel like it should be in play at all. Beach Cities Health District, I know they do great things, but I don't know that requiring that is going to make them provide essential services more. And really, it feels like we're losing sight of the big picture. And I live nearby this facilities or this property. So I've got an invested interest. The big picture getting missed is that this land is supposed to be public, but it's not. Beach Cities Health District should not be building what they propose at all, given that it's wholly commercial. Everyone forgets that this is a PCF land, which stands for Public Community Facility. And I've been in meetings, both Beach Cities Health District and city meetings, where people don't even know that. And some even guess and say, oh, it's private commercial facility. I wish I was joking, but that's true. I've heard that. So let's not forget that this is public community facility. The whole area, I don't suggest should be an open space, though that is literally the very first use when you look up PCF, but it should all benefit the whole community. We know right now that it doesn't take place, given the existing for-profit commercial structures there have been granted exceptions over the years, like Silverado, but that doesn't mean that going forward we can't honor what the zoning intended. And I mean, there's all this talk of need for not having overdensity. If you're going to make it actually for the public, then the condition should be to build a facility for the community. It's right in the zoning name. And the only time a variance for a floor area ratio increase should take place is if you're going to build structures for everyone's use on this land. It would be a density bonus allowed, with the trade-off being that the public benefits. Think dedicated low-cost spay-neuter clinic, which is a critical need to reduce the epidemic of animal shelter overcrowding, or any number of the other public-focused uses for this type of zoning. I think we can do better, and we should. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And one more person, I think?
We have Mary.
Can you hear me?
Yes, your name and where you're from?
Good evening. I'm Mary Drummer. I'm from District 1, Redondo Beach. I support Beach Cities Health District initiatives, including this campus build, and oppose the ridiculous proposal of a FAR of 0.75. And the city doesn't know how it got there. Please Do not piss on our legs and tell us that it's raining. And FAR .75 jeopardizes the services to 3 beach cities over the lies of a relative few malcontents in Torrance, or on the Planning Commission, or the City Council. Most residents in Redondo Beach are subjected to construction. Those neighbors believe that they're the exception to the rule of bettering our city. And P.S. Kensington is where old people are stored until they die. Beach Cities helps people of every age range to live. Go Team USA. Thank you.
I think that was an Olympic
reference?
suggestion. I think. Anybody else? Online.
No more E attendees.
Okay, and then we do have more people out there. There you go. Come on up.
Good evening. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
My name is Byung Cho. I'm a longtime resident of Redondo Beach. I'm so glad my wife and I live here with 3 beautiful children. This is a great town. Thank you for doing your work, and thank you to our staff for those hard work every day. I'm also a board member of a wonderful, best school district in South Bay. We wanted to just quickly point out to you, I know that you received a letter from us that outlining our comment back to the consultant place works back in September 2023, our letter to the city back in April of this year, and another one July of this year, pointing out miscategorization of our properties currently that are being used as our education facilities, namely Alta Vista Elementary School, Alta Vista Lincoln Elementary School, as well as the Franklin Park. The Franklin Park entirety is owned by the school district. We make it available to everyone in Redondo Beach as an open space and park. Large portions of Anderson Park is also by the school district. We make it available to everybody in Redondo Beach. The same is true for the Alta Vista Park. The half of the park roughly belongs to the school district. We make it available to everyone in Redondo Beach for our everyone's use. We're happy with that use. We'd like just to be correct that mislabel, a miscategorization of those properties to be corrected. We also would like to point out, as pointed out by the council as well as another speaker, Police Annex is on one of our properties. It's where Redondo Union High School is located. We're happy to have our police with us. As expressed by the council earlier, we like the rules to be applied consistently and equitably. We're not sure where this school portion of that had come into this particular description in this process, but we'd like your consideration to going back to what it was, and also my point earlier, correcting some of the mistakes that have not been corrected over some time. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, one more? Come on up. Or down, come on down.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ann Wolfson. First, I'd like to state my strong support for the 0.75 FAR limit on public institutional land. Public land should be preserved and responsibly guided by city policy. The first 4 tenets of the Redondo Beach General Plan, its Vision 2050, and guiding principles are quality of life and beach culture, small town feel, community and family, preservation of neighborhoods. These are at the forefront for a reason. The city municipal code tells us that any development on public land should be compatible with the character, mass, and scale of the surrounding neighborhoods. However, BCHD's master plan for their massive development project flies in the face of both important guides for the city. Here's a few reasons why it's important to preserve the current
0.75 FAR limit for public institutional land. The FAR of 0.75 already affords plenty of room for growth, allowing an increased level of density and intensity on public institutional land could easily lead to misuse and abuse that would result in permanent damages to the city. We've seen what happens when no limits are prescribed for development. In Redondo Beach in the early 1970s, 2 buildings rose 70+ feet high along the ocean. You know them, the Delphi and the Ocean Plaza. We don't even have to imagine what BCHD might want to do with an increased FAR. We've seen their master plan. Who would have imagined a health district wanting to build a 500-foot-long structure along the edge of a 30-foot hill, raising it up to be 100 feet over surrounding homes? This would be a 100% privately owned structure. Their plan of ultimately tripling the intensity and density of buildings on the lot does not pass the intent of the general plan, the city's municipal code, or design review requirements. The municipal code requirements and design review guidelines that any project is required to meet are clear. Ensure compatibility, protect property values. The location and buildings and structures shall respect the natural terrain of the site. Design shall be integrated and compatible with the neighborhood. Be in harmony with the scale and the bulk of surrounding properties, and so on. The 0.57 FAR defines the fine balance between substantive growth while preserving open space.
Second, 30 seconds.
It adds protections for the city, the environment, and most of all, the residents. Increasing the FAR would set a dangerous and permanent precedence for overdevelopment on public land now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else out there? Okay, and if you haven't spoke yet, you can speak when, if you want to come up later. Anybody want to start up here?
I just had one question.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Craig.
Yes, Mr. Scully, when you did your presentation on one of the slides, I think it was page 16, you mentioned that the city must update our ordinances by February 12th of next year. Now, isn't there an election that has to happen to approve the general plan prior to that, or does that come up on the March election?
Well, that deadline is only applicable to those, the implementation of the housing element and the sites and programs within the housing element. And that's where, right now, we have a current ruling from a judge that those properties, those programs associated with the housing element implementation are not subject to Article 27.
Okay, so the general plan as a whole doesn't have to be fully approved by the city, it's just those components you mentioned, okay.
Correct.
I've got a short little comment before I know you. Oh, yes.
Before your deliberation, do you mind if I address some of the comments that were made that may help with your discussion on the item?
Please do, yes.
Do.
So, thank you. Mark Weiner,
Planning
Director of Community Development. So the general plan is a broad document. It has goals and policies for the entire city. And went through a 7-year process where there was a lot of public input on that process. So it seems like at this point, we're really down to one potential issue. There may be a few others, but this is the one that stands out, and that's what's the allowed FAR for the public institutional zones within the city. So I do believe that needs to be studied in more depth. Ultimately, it's going to be a policy decision by the city council. The planning commission is advisory on that, so you'll be taking in the input and making a recommendation. What's in there right now is currently, as stated by the speakers, 0.75 for the public institution zones throughout the city, and there's multiple, with the exception of 2 sites, and that's City Hall and the Annex, which have 1.25. So I do feel that before the Planning Commission can make a recommendation, we should come back with some additional analysis and studies, since this does seem to be the primary issue at this point based on the comments at the meeting and what we've received in terms of e-comments.
And, yeah, the blue folder items, right?
Yes, and the blue folder items. There's also, in making this decision, it may be something that the council may want to take some time with, where we are in the deadline for the housing-related amendments and updates that we're working on. This may be something that we parse out and warrants additional study, especially in light of the fact that the city council is voting to place a bond on the ballot to improve its facilities on the public institution zones. And that raises the question, does the 0.75 meet the needs of some of those sites, including the fire department? So the bottom line is that this is really, it's an important site. It's a small aspect of the overall general plan. But it does, I think, for the next time we bring this to the Planning Commission in 2 weeks, it was going to require some additional analysis, input from staff of these individual sites, and some understanding of what 0.75 versus 1.25 would look like on these sites in terms of square footage. So I just wanted to point that out. I know a lot of the testimony tonight was really about that issue, and we will be following up with additional information on that. And there was a comment about the school sites and the land use designation being changed for those, and that is something we're looking at. We received a letter from the school district, and they expressed concern because right now those properties have a designation of public institutional, and the general plan update proposes to make it open space. However, there could be some potential issues with that because the city is to some extent preempted by state law in terms of our ability to regulate school-owned properties. So we intend to bring back some additional information and recommendations on that issue as well.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question for
Yes, Commissioner Lamb?
Director Weiner. So both the FAR 0.75 for PI and the school site new designations, they're already in the EIR, is that correct? Those designations are already in the EIR, is that correct?
That's correct. And the FAR may, if we're going to change that, it would probably require some amending of the EIR, which is another consideration, which could extend the time of this project. That's why I'm saying it may need to be separated and dealt with separately. And regarding the land use designation, we evaluated that in the context of the EIR, and that's less of an issue for the school sites in terms of making the change from open space to public institutional, which is actually what it's currently at right now. It's currently designated public institutional.
So defaulting back to the original wouldn't necessarily require a recirculation of the EIR?
That's correct for that particular issue, but the FAR would, and that's because the EIR includes build-out projections for the city, and that affects the traffic analysis as well. So that's a very quantitative aspect of the EIR. When it comes to the really minor request of the school district, that's we can accommodate that.
One more question on this line, and that is, with the EIR and the potential new, or keeping, or with the 0.75, what would then need to be done if you said parse it out to sort of separate it out from this current process? What would that look like?
So that's something that we would have to evaluate and bring back, and we've planned on doing that. What would the process look like? It would certainly involve updating the EIR, doing an addendum to it, or potentially recirculating it so that when the item gets before the council for a final decision, the EIR could support whatever policy decision they make on it if they decide to go up to 1.25 or maybe somewhere in between. Currently, for the Beach Cities Health District site, the EIR studied up to 0.85 FAR because it took into account the project that they had provided plans on but have not formally submitted. So there is some wiggle room to go up a little bit on that particular site. But beyond that, it's would likely need an amendment to the EIR and a recalculating of the build-out projections.
And because there's no project at this point in time, there's no project that has been submitted, you can only go on then what the preliminary information that you have. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was factored in, and my understanding is that the health district, they did a independent EIR because they're the lead agency. That's been submitted to the city for peer review. The city's the responsible agency. So we did have some information to work off of for that calculation, but they have not submitted an application for the entitlements for the project.
Okay. One more question, and that is the FAR calculated differently for PI than it is for C2, for example, or R1, right, R1? So are there different criteria used for establishing the FAR?
Well, it's the same calculation, it's a different standard. For the sites. I believe for R1, it's actually a density standard. I don't think it has a FAR that may be in the zoning code. I will say that my understanding of how the determination was made is that currently, so the general plan doesn't place a cap on the FAR for public institution, the original general plan. However, the zoning code places a 1.25 cap on City Hall and the annex sites. That was the basis for what was put into the general plan. The other public institutional sites, it's somewhat open-ended. It says that the square footage is at the discretion of the planning commission, and it doesn't provide any limit.
Except for, there's two, I think, that are like 0.50, isn't it? There's a couple that are, the range is broad.
Yeah.
The range is broad. Some have none, and some have
Very, very small, like, for example.
0.20, right?
Yeah.
0.20.
The P-PRO, our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Zone, that's got a set FAR of 0.25.
Right.
School facilities, that's subject to Planning Commission design review. These are the various breakdowns in our PI, the P general plan designation, and then the implementing zoning categories for public institutional. So we've got public community facility zone. That's also subject to Planning Commission design review. Public right-of-way zone, that's a 0.1 FAR. And the P RVP, Riviera Village Parking Zone, is subject to Planning Commission design review. The PCIV Civic Center Zone is the 1.25. And that's all. Those are all the breakdowns.
Okay, so Sean, currently the Beach City Health District doesn't have a FAR right now. It has subject to Planning Commission
Correct.
review.
Correct.
So if you had to guess, what is that FAR there, you think?
You know,
Can't guess
we
it?
would do a lot of analysis on that. We would be looking at other similar facilities, you know, just to have benchmarks in other jurisdictions,
Yeah.
possibly.
I think that would kind of be helpful because we know what that looks like, right? And then you guys want to talk to us about what a 0.75 and what a 1.25 looks like. So maybe kind of, you know, we know those buildings, they've been there forever. It would be kind of nice, maybe, I don't know, what is that? a lot of open space there. There's a lot of parking
Yeah,
lots.
oh, do you mean
There's a
like
whole-
what they're currently?
Yeah,
their
what it
I think
currently
their
is.
current FAR is 0.77
But it's on that space, 0.77.
on that space.
Okay.
That's, and I could be off by a tenth or two, but
Do you think that's built out right now
well, it's built out now per its historical build out.
for
You know.
0.75?
Well, the 0.77 existing
0.77
condition.
rather.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I have, and then I'll open it up again to whom I think Commissioner Light maybe had something there. So as far as the school property goes, I couldn't find the map on that. I know it's been in a blue folder item and also e-comments. Are all the school properties listed? So we have Kensington listed there as school property. We have the Garnet school, the old school that was taken down. Is that listed? We've got the Vincent PCH. So we need, is everything listed as school property, or they just want this particular? Why those and not the other things that are also should be listed as school property? Are those listed
Do you mean?
on this map that they're talking about that's been designated for park? Or park, open space, rather?
I mean, all the properties have designations assigned.
As school district.
Oh, well, we'd have to pull up the land use plan and
I couldn't
and
find
take a
it,
look
but I
at
know
that.
it's been mentioned, because there are a lot of properties that are school district properties that maybe some people have forgotten about. I think it's really important to know that there was a elementary school on Garnet and PCH that was taken down and a building was put up. It kind of gives us all an idea of what the school district actually is talking about when they talk about wanting to have these other open space changed.
I could provide some clarification on that. So the school sites themselves are, the designation is public institutional.
Okay.
3 of the schools within the city, and that's Lincoln Elementary, Alta Vista Elementary, and the former Franklin School site, have an adjacent parcel that's not developed. And those are the ones that the city, with this general plan updated, listed as open space.
Right.
When previously they were public institutional.
Do we know how that happened, that they got listed as open space?
Oh, the intention was to match, have a designation that matched the existing land use. So it was to be more accurate and reflective, instead of everything like schools, utilities, they all had a P designation.
Okay.
And so then it was, in the proposed land use plan, we have broken that out to open space, utility, and public institution. So it's more, so there's 3 categories of public institution instead of the existing single one. So and that was done to, again, instead of having every public institutional land use having the same designation, just breaking it out consistent with what is actually there. So if it's a transmission corridor, instead of that being P, that would be now utility. If
I see.
if it was a park, instead of it being P, it would be open space. So that was the intention. We're certainly going to go back and look really closely at
Okay. And then
all
I
of
guess
these
the
P.
next question I would have is, do we know why the school district wants it changed?
So far.
That
I can't speak for them. They did submit a letter on it, and
But I'm not sure why. Because what I'm saying is I don't believe that they've said also, would you please label the Kensington and the Garnet property and the Pet Boy and the, you know what I'm saying? Can you just label these, but they're not asking for the other properties to be labeled? And then I'm just not sure why. Yes, do you?
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. As planning director correctly pointed out, these were not the changes that we instituted. These properties are currently being used as schools. It was incorrectly changed by other entity other than the school district. We're simply asking to leave that alone. That's all.
Oh, I see. Okay. I think, okay. Okay, did anybody else up here want to, yeah, Commissioner Light? and then-
Just a couple of clarifying questions here. The .77 was what? Is that the current hospital or used to be hospital? That's .77?
Yeah, the hospital, medical office buildings, all the
that whole
development existing on that property.
Okay, I got that. Yeah, what would be helpful, and I think some of us have already addressed this, is, to me, is what are these current public institutional zones, FARs, that we have around the city? So we have some, we can drive around and look at them, because I do see the real need to keep things that are public institutions that are in residential areas compatible. And best way to do that, I'd love to see the little charts and what you've done on other kinds of things that show us FAR and what different building setups look like. That would be very helpful. But driving by and actually seeing what they look like in a neighborhood is really, to me, the best way to get that feel. So if we could get both of those things, I don't know if by the August 15th meeting, but that would be very helpful.
Thank you,
To help me kind of get a feel for that. Last issue was this Lincoln Public Space one. Because that's right in my neighborhood, I walk by it all the time. Are we talking about the public space that used to be educational, but it's now public space? Are those baseball fields that are next to Lincoln? Do you know? That's what that refers to?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's Anderson Park there, and then there's those baseball fields, and then there's a little daycare center thing, and then Lincoln School. I'm not sure what would be the open space, but.
Yeah.
Getting a nod of yes from over
That
there.
sound right?
Yes.
Someone who actually knows, great.
Yes, I'm also on the school board, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Basically, that it's open space. If you were to change it from what it was, we're asking to please just keep it what it was. We're leaving it as open space, but it is our property. If you were to change it, it involves that it's no longer our property, that it's now open space and part of the city.
Okay.
That's the reason. Does that make sense?
To that point, that it's locked up. It's not open space to the public. It's open to,
But we do let some of
Yeah.
that space be open, but it's ours, and it would still be marked as PI. So if we needed to build a new school, let's say, we would be able to build it, because that is a public institutional land.
okay, but so that's just for my
Oh, I'm sorry,
information.
I wasn't thinking, you have to come up. I am so sorry.
And I should know better too.
Okay.
And identify yourself, et cetera.
You went?
I'm sorry.
Yes, and you have.
My name is Raymer Flynn, and I also serve on the Redondo Beach Unified School Board. And I walked in late as Mr. Cho was speaking to clarify the letter. Hopefully you all have a copy of the letter that the school district sent to you. And it's just that when we were looking at this plan, we noticed that it had been changed. Where it had all been previously just marked as public institution, it was marked, and it now makes sense that they were just trying to say, oh, well, that's a park, that's open space. But it matters to us as a school district, because in the future, if we wanted to build a school, if we had a need or something like that, it would be in conflict with what the general plan that was adopted. So we felt it was important to point out, can we just clarify that that is still public institutional land? We have no plans to change it or not open it up, but it is our responsibility and our property. So calling it a park the same way as a park that the city is responsible for isn't correct. Does that make sense? So that's why those are there. And whether or not you have designated the land that we own as PI, I can't answer, because I would imagine it is, but I don't know, because we were just drawn to that which was changed inadvertently, not because we, in this process, it had always been PI, public land institution, and then in this plan, when we went to the layout, when they showed it to us all, that's when we noticed. We're like, wait a minute, it's now marked open space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to note that park, in the description of what public institutional is, it includes park. So that would also fit what's out on the site currently.
Okay. Okay.
But there's also other things such as government, administration buildings, facilities that can be in those zones as well.
Okay.
And there's a document, Appendix B to the general plan draft environmental impact report, and it's the build-out methodology. And it's got a really good description of all the public institutional uses and the analysis that went in to what projections there were for those properties, for those types of properties. And it also gives a really good breakdown of existing FARs for things like the fire station, Kensington, all the different public institutional land uses that were in discussions about. So that's a really good resource to understand, give you a better understanding of the public institutional uses and how they're developed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Craig?
Yeah, a couple of questions was so in one of the letters that we there's obviously some property in that overlay map that needs to be identified as open space versus PI, which seems like it should be a pretty straightforward process. I understand that the school board and the city council have a committee that is already meeting to identify those properties, so perhaps we can coordinate with them to get that list expedited. Maybe that would make that easier. I think it's Councilmember Kalajerovich and Lowenstein are on that. I don't know who on the school board is on that panel, but it seems like that should be a pretty straightforward thing to set up quickly. Now, getting back to the letter that we got, and that's why I was asking who sent the letter. There's two parts to it. One is identifying those properties, which I think that should be pretty straightforward. It's either, we call it open space because it's open, but not necessarily for the city. So that seems straightforward. If it's a field, I guess it's open, right? But the other part of the letter had to do, and maybe I was reading into it differently, was not just for that property, but for any property the school district currently owns. The governance of school property is under the election code and I think the government code, so the city doesn't really have anything to do with that. But if you were to, like in Kensington, decided to not get rid of it, because to liquidate school property is a very complicated process. You have to go through, so in Kensington's situation, people don't realize it wasn't actually sold. It was for a 99-year lease, I believe. And the current tenant, so to speak, built out the property and is using it right now. Now, in that situation, that would require a change in zoning, like the FAR would be changed on it. So my question to the school board, are you asking for any property you have now that you might want to convert for that use in the future to change that to a 1.25? Or is it just for the open space stuff that was discussed? Because it seems like there's two parts to the letter, and the second part doesn't quite jive with what I'm hearing.
Come on up.
Hi, Raymer Flanagan. I believe I was trying to pull up the letter that was on my phone. There was one, we wanted to make sure our properties are most designated. And then we were also feel strongly that keeping that public institutions have the 1.25 FAR, the same as being allowed for the city council building and for the police station, I think it was. That was the second part that we had in the letter. We just wanted at this opportunity for there to be clarity. If we were to choose to develop a property, I mean, Kensington might be a bad example because we did have to pass a ballot measure in order to develop that property, but there are still the process that anybody, if they were to build on our land, would have to go through with the Planning Commission and the city and to follow all applicable FARs. Now, the reason we want a 1.25 on public institutions is if what we would want to be able to do with our schools. So I'm not sure what Kensington's FAR is at the moment. Do you guys happen to know? Because I know a visual, I appreciate that, knowing what that means. My question would become if, say, their property were to come down.
Excuse me. Oh, you asked, I think it's 0.57?
Yeah, 0.5759.
0.57. So if that were to come down in an earthquake or something, could they build up to what could they rebuild given this new limitation?
They could.
Well, sure,
Let me just
because it's
see.
way
It's under-
below that. So
Yes, right.
what you would be asking for at a 125 would be practically 3 times bigger than what the Kensington is now. 3 times bigger.
Right.
So you want your school, why would you need a school to
Consistency
be?
with what public is institution, the FARs for all public institutions. Truthfully, the first part of the letter that was very specific is having our land identified correctly so that we don't run into any problem. And Mr. Craig is correct that it would be the state can develop on that land for school use.
Right.
Now, whether we choose to lease that property out later, we would still have to come. That's not really what's in our
Well,
request.
but if the FAR would be set at 125, then when you came in front of that particular planning commission, you could have brought the Kensington up 6 floors. So it could have been 3, if you.
It could have been 3
Could have
times
been
higher.
3
is what you're
times
saying.
higher, and because you have that FAR, there's nothing that particular planning commission can do about it. So that's an interesting ask for the plan. We don't have, even on Redondo High, the newest building that I remember when I
Nothing
was
this
there
high.
is nowhere close to that kind of height.
Not close to 1.25? No, I don't know. What's the height at Redondo? Do you know?
No, there's too much open space, so that would be, okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Gaddis.
I haven't seen what the FAR on the existing fire station facilities is. Do we know that offhand?
That should be in that build-out methodology, so we could try to look that up. Let me see if I can pull that up.
On that tiny little document you have?
Yeah, let me see.
It's Appendix A.
Let's see.
Let's see. Appendix.
You have the answer to that question?
Let's see.
Do you know what it is, Sheila?
Tell me the question again.
Oh, you know.
The FAR of the fire
on the fire
stations.
station.
Yeah, I know it's in here.
Let me look.
They're
just, well, so far, they're just giving zones.
I think.
Well, I think what would be helpful at the next meeting, if we come back with some data on those sites and estimates on what the current
Yeah, that
FAR
would be
is.
so
Because
helpful.
right now, 0.75 versus 1.25, it's really in the abstract. It's hard
Right.
to understand what the difference would be and what it would mean to the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, right. Yes.
I would just add to
Commissioner Lamb.
that. I would just add to that. We also heard tonight some serious concerns about compatibility as related to designation of FARs. And I think when we think about a 1.25, as you were just talking about, if we were talking about the Kensington, 6 stories, that would be not compatible with the surrounding residential areas. And so properties that are located within residential areas, and when we consider changing the FAR to 1.25, we must really be mindful that these properties are within residential areas where the homes are 1 or 2 stories high, right? So this is one of the most important issues. This has been told to us, whether it was GPAC or whether it's been here in front of the Planning Commission, that compatibility is a very high value for our residents. In fact, it's of such high value that now in the new land use element, we have a whole section on compatibility. And not only from one zone to the next, but within residential zones themselves.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. Yeah, I think I mean, the question really for me is, I'm not understanding okay, the only thing I can think is that if you have a 1.25, or, yeah, you make for the high school, for the school district, you make the land more valuable for developers, but I'm not understanding how that would benefit the kids at Redondo, the kids that participate. That's a little bit confusing to me as far as why that would need to be so high. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Craig.
Is there any way that I could do a presentation or have it pull up on the screen on 1A? I have my computer hooked up to it.
Jamal, do you know how to do that? Or should we ask? No? I think we could go over to, got it?
No, I'm on 1A.
Well, this is something I asked
Oh, okay, go
Sean to
ahead.
share, and we had brought this up at the last meeting. We had it on reserve.
Right.
I know it's not as sophisticated as the architectural renderings we were working on getting, which we still are.
Yeah.
But this just gives some context as to what the FAR would look like in terms of massing on a site. On this table, it shows it in relation to building coverage. So you can see on the, I'll just use the middle one, 50% coverage at 1.5. It looks like that's about, is that 3 stories, I believe? Yes. If half the lot was covered.
Right, so in Kensington, most of the lots covered. It's just a parking lot in the backside and some on the front. Yeah.
We don't have a lot coverage requirement, though. Is that correct?
No.
We do have setback requirements, however, which will,
Right.
I'm ensure there is some open space on the property.
Okay, so is there a way that Commissioner Craig can do his presentation, or?
Is it in the packet, agenda packet?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just had it by my computer with a PowerPoint, that's all.
We can't make, and he's plugged in. Usually, I think if you're plugged in, you're supposed
Into
to.
1A.
Can you see that, Jamal? 1A,
Yeah, I have it on duplicate screen.
Aha, we got it.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal.
Thank you, Jamal.
Magic, okay. Since we're talking about Kensington, and Kensington would probably be more appropriate comparison now, because ever since Measure DD came into play, when you make changes to property use, it would have to go to a city vote. And so if you recall, Kensington was Measure K, and since it was changed, the Redondo residents voted on it. Now, this is Kensington. As you can see around the top, let's go back here. There's setbacks, as you mentioned. So this property itself is around the corner of Nob Hill and PCH. Now, this is a property tax record, and if you look on the little red box, the lot itself is about 143,000 square feet, and the building is 82,000 plus square feet. Now, this is how you compute the FAR. So you got the property size, the building size, you divide it, and it's at 0.5759. So that property there, that level of development is well below the 0.75 that I've been hearing solicited about. Now, how does that look if you increase it? So Kensington now is 0.575. It's 82,000 square foot building. If you raise it to 0.75, which is the number being offered out, it's 107,405 square feet. If you raise it to 1.25, that's 179,000 square feet. So those are numbers, and I'm pretty good with numbers, but sometimes it's good to have it visualized. You had that map, Mr. Weiner, a minute ago. So here's currently Kensington. Now again, this isn't Photoshop, so I just did it really quickly on my computer. Currently, the way it's set up, 0.575. Now, if you increase it to 0.75, look at the roof line. It goes up. Magic. Not really complicated, but that's about the percentage that would go up. Now, if you went to 1.25, that's how big it is. So with the setbacks and everything with that specific property, that's what it would look like. It would be 4.5 stories tall with that 82,000 square feet. So it's quite a significant change.
Yeah.
So original, bigger, and then bigger. Now, there are several properties in the city that the school district owns, and some have been converted to other usage through that lease process. This is another one that was done before Measure DD. This is Heritage Point. This is off Aviation Way in North Redondo. That's an angle view of the side. Now, this lot is 108,000 square feet. The building's 135,000 square feet. So that means this is at a FAR of 1.23. This is a big building. So visually, I just wanted to put that to show people a better idea with the existing structure, what it would look like. So it's quite significant. But like I said, the Kensington example, that's pretty dramatic. So.
Thank you, that's helpful,
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
very helpful. Okay, anybody else up here? Sheila, you had a presentation, I believe.
Yes, it's more specific to the land use element, and it could be lengthy. It could be lengthy.
Well, do you want to, do you? we
is
only
everyone
have
ready?
2 more meetings, so we
Right,
should
is everybody
probably.
ready to-
Yeah, we should probably dig in. Is everyone okay with that?
All right, and planning manager Scully will pull it up on the screen. Okay, the first one I'm putting, so the idea here is I'm wanting to bring this forth for your review and comment for appropriateness. The first policy, so some of these are policies that I'm adding, and some are policies that need to be added to the implementation, but I will explain those. And a caveat here is this first one, policy LU 111, creation and distribution of parkland. I'm suggesting here that we add this paragraph. Nowhere in the document does it describe the impact of the increased number of residents by, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the housing element said 2040. Am I incorrect about that? And the housing element was 2050?
Well, the general plan element is 2050. The housing element is an 8-year cycle. It's 2029. And the numbers there are the 9,400 is in reference to the housing element capacities.
Right, for 2040?
Well, actually, I'm not quite sure the 2040. Maybe that's Connect SoCal or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Could be in the housing element as a projection from SCAG or something, but that the number that we're looking at for reasonable build-out purposes is less than half of that.
Oh, for reasonable?
Yes. In terms of, well, you know what? You're residents. I'm thinking dwelling units.
Yes,
So,
this is
okay.
new residents.
That might be
Okay,
roughly in the ballpark.
so we'll say roughly. Okay, so at the end of 2040, the projection, if the build-out is correct, we would have 9,400 new residents by 2040. So if Redondo Beach does not increase its park acreage, currently at 148.8 acres, instead of the current 3.1 acres per 1,000 residents, which is already low, right? The city will only have 1.9 acres per 1,000 residents. locating this additional parkland and parkland sites is essential for the city to maintain the existing parkland ratio. So this policy could be added to LU 1.11, or it could also be in, I think in the open space, I think one of the, doesn't it, in the open space, it has parkland ratio? In the open
It does.
space element, maybe this should go with the parkland ratio. So,
Okay, so we're going to get really organized on this, you guys, so we don't have to go back. We only have a couple more meetings here. Okay, I think this sounds great. So is everybody okay with this being added to the general plan that would be presented to the city council? Yes? Okay, straw poll. Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? 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 Okay, there we go, Sean, we got one. Okay, next.
so I do think it's critical that the city council know that whatever comes forth in terms of new park acreage, right, potential, that's going to help prevent us going down to 1.9.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Okay, next.
Okay, land use element goal, identity, policy LU 2.2, design quality. The question here was, the implementation action was monitor. And so I'm suggesting, so there's actually Director Weiner who said, well, we could add in the implementation action, IMLU 14, he stated the design standards will be reviewed every 3 years.
And how does that differ from what's there right now as
It
far
doesn't
as
have-
time? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
no
perfect.
time.
Okay, does everyone agree with that one?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. We're
Yes.
five of us. Okay.
Okay.
Next, Sheila.
Policy LU 2.3, context sensitive development. Okay, so the explanation, the implementation actions for this policy do not identify specific actions that will support context-sensitive development. Context-sensitive development, it is related to compatibility, right? Context, that when something is built, the developer is sensitive to what's happening around in the residential area, or whether it's in the harbor, wherever it is, that we're saying having awareness and value the context is an important value for the residents.
Okay.
So I'm suggesting that this policy be added to implementation action, LU 14. It's not currently there, and LU 14 references the design guidelines. So this would allow context-sensitive development to be included in the residential considerations in the residential design guidelines.
Okay, so that specifically talks about compatibility then, which you've been talking, right?
Right, it references context-sensitive development is related to
Can you give an example, Sheila, on that?
context-sensitive.
In an actual situation, where would the developer what would they need to be sensitive to?
So perhaps Mr. Scully could correct me if I'm wrong, but context development, sensitive development means, well, you're going to be, well, let's take Artesia, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have the policy up, and it's asking, as a policy to look at the context of the development. So what's around it existing.
Okay, so that it's so that it fits.
Yeah, so that it fits. It's
Okay.
certainly subjective, and the world's changed a little bit on that front, as we know.
Right.
But, policies are usually subjective.
Right,
So
right, right.
it kind of puts us in a bit of a bind, but, Yeah, no, it's certainly a common practice when we're reviewing projects to look at that, and this is holding us to that
Okay.
standard.
Okay, so is everybody for that particular, adding that particular one?
Right, so we're adding this policy to IMLU 14.
Right.
Which is going to tie it into the.
Oh, I see. So.
Right?
I
It's
see
not
what you're
in
saying.
that, it's not, the implementation action
Oh,
is
there it
not
is.
related to this policy.
So just add that as an applicable policy?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, then we have the add new policy about abandoned houses?
Yes.
And where is Jim Mueller running?
Yes, where's Jim? So,
Okay, same for the other one? 3.3, the neighborhood buffer,
yes, you saw that. And 3.2.
and 3.2,
Yeah, that's context aware, which is very similar.
yes.
Right.
Okay, so that's the next land use element goal compatibility?
We jumped.
We jumped?
Right. Let's go to the add new policy, abandoned houses.
Okay. Mid-page on the first page?
Oh, which one's that?
Mid-page on the first page, still right below the land use element goal identify.
And it's adding a new policy. So there's no policy now,
Oh, this one
and there's
here.
no implementation action.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm referencing, everybody's in agreement with Jim, right?
Yeah.
About this.
Jim Mueller.
Yeah, Jim Mueller. That we should do something about these abandoned houses. Does it warrant, this is a question for all of us, right? Does it warrant a new policy? You're the experts up there, right? Does it really warrant a new policy? Would this be appropriate as a policy? And if not, maybe should the language be different?
Is it limited to abandoned houses, or would it include commercial buildings too?
Could be broad, yeah.
Because my understanding is the occupancy rate's fairly high in Redondo, but I think it's the commercial vacancies
Right.
and the maintenance of the buildings. And I know that some cities have created like a taxing system if you're going to keep the building vacant. And the justification is that they're not occupied by a business that's providing tax revenue to the city, yet the city's still providing services in the form of police protection and fire. So I think it would warrant adding a policy, and really the policy is just it's a guide for the city to take some future action and to be justified in taking that action that's based on a directive in the general plan.
How would we add houses and commercial, or would we just say structures, or how would we change Commissioner Lamb's wording there?
Well, I think we could work with this and wordsmith it, and I would include commercial, because I
Yes,
think
I
that's
think so
where
too.
Makes sense.
most of the issue is.
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Muller's been bringing up.
Okay, so, and then to bring it back next week, or at the end? At the end, I think it was when you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
think-
going to, but we can still go ahead and add that tonight, add that.
Oh,
When
we'll add
he
it.
wordsmiths
Yeah, you're
it.
gonna add it,
Yeah, so
okay.
we can bring
As a
these back.
recommendation from the planning commission, that's a great idea. We don't need to wait for Jim Mueller to talk to us again about it. He's made it perfectly clear. Okay, right? I think.
Yes,
Okay.
these are edits we could incorporate by the next meeting, I would think.
Okay,
so far.
perfect. Okay, next, Sheila?
Policy LU 3.1, compatible, compatible uses. This is just changing guidelines. It says, right? It says. 3.1. No, wait.
Land use used to
3.1, my mistake. So let's just cross that off. LU 3.1. Okay, LU 3.2, context aware, we're moving that policy, we're adding that policy to implementation action,
Yes.
LU 14. Same with the next one, 3.3.
Yes.
We've already straw voted on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so 311, I'm adding a new implementation action because the implementation action, I think you said, continue to, have, send out notifications for the meetings and et cetera, et cetera. There were just two. So I added as an implementation action for civic engagement, develop a public education and outreach plan for land use related issues which can be iterated and utilized throughout the year. So what I'm proposing here is that along with, that on land use issues that are of import to the community, I'm not saying every land use issue. I think you kind of know where I'm going with this, but on important ones that there be a citywide plan, right? A plan that could be iterated, right now, iterated multiple times during the year. So what happens now is each project has its own education or has its own plan. So they're all different, correct? They are different. So we've got really high quality ones like the a waterfront,
Oh, yes.
right? Really high quality. And we've got other projects that get nothing
They get no attention as far as outreach.
as far as outreach.
Okay.
Right? And you yourself had mentioned you'd like education and outreach for landscape issues.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't have an overarching plan that can be iterated, not just for land use, but for open space, whatever. So that's the proposal.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the implementation action for civic engagement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, is that okay with you, Commissioner Light? Yes? And Commissioner Gray, yeah? Yes, me, Sheila, yeah, you're good. We've got 5 again on that one. Okay, next, Sheila. Do you need a break?
I'm so sorry.
We're moving through this. No, this is amazing.
This is good? Do you like this?
Oh my God, you did so much work. I like did chicken scratch compared to this. This is wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so this next one is everybody's going to love too, co-living. Okay, this is
Oh,
right.
Yes.
Okay, so new policy, co-living. And again, the two masters over here, Director Weiner and Planning Manager Scully, might volunteer to do some wordsmithing on these. But add a new implementation. I would add that for this new policy, co-living, this was asked for by some important council members, mayors, et cetera. Update the municipal code to establish requirements and standards for co-living in residential and multifamily zones. Define co-living, parking standards, master lease, hosting platform regulations and definition, development standards for multifamily buildings in the co-living section.
This is absolutely needed, and I think that Ms. Osborne kind of alluded to this tonight. What's going on in your neighborhood, right? We need that, yes,
The
definitely.
5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms.
Right, is everybody okay with that? Yes, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So another
Parking
one.
standards, I think you brought that up also. Okay, so land use element goal, health and vitality, policy 4.2, health and land use. Add to implementation action 37. Oh, this was a conversation Planning Manager Scully and I had, just adding adding, because it wasn't clear what a risk assessment was, right? So we're just saying, continue to use the existing risk assessment standards that you're already using.
Okay.
Okay, so policy 4.3, oh yes, Manager Scully and I talked about this, coastal amenities. For this policy 4.3, it says enhance the city's coastal amenities, but in the implementation action, it didn't say anything about the harbor amenities plan. So that should be added. Right.
Sounds good.
Next one, land use element goal, environmental sustainability. Policy 5.2, add to IMLU 44, landscaping, require the exclusive use of native California vegetation in all new housing and commercial developments. This is, my hat goes to Chair
Hayes, oh, Chair
Hayes.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Madam
My
Chair.
hat goes off to Madam Chair on this one.
That's perfect. Perfect. I love that. Everybody good with that? So the difference is that it says drought tolerant planting in some of it. It has to be changed to be just California native, which is, I think, what we intend. Because you can get a native Australian plant that's drought tolerant, but it's not native to California. So it's just clearing up the wording there. Perfect.
The also advantage to using California natives is that they attract local pollinators. Right. So we get more of the birds, butterflies.
All the wildlife.
The only concern I have with that is California's a big state and we got Northern California and things like that. Should it say Southern California?
No,
our
you know,
environment? Because or drought resistant California native or.
Yeah, well, just California native. So there are thousands and thousands and thousands of plants that would be, if you put it, you could easily find, you put in your zip code, it'll tell you what's native for your zip code, right? And what you could plant. And I think if we get, I mean, I've had this conversation with Jim, with so many different people. If we get too specific, then we start losing people. Whereas if we just say California native, then we kind of cover it all. So yeah, you could put a California native oak tree. That would work. You know, it might be kind of big, but it would work, right?
Or a sequoia. It might not grow here, I guess. Is that what you're thinking?
I like the sequoia.
It's just, you know, it's really interesting because in a lot of the city properties, which they consider drought tolerant, if you look up, for example, by the Redondo sign, none of those are California natives. Those may be drought tolerant, but they're like native to Australia or Japan or New Zealand. So it's better as far as local wildlife goes to encourage that, whether we're talking about the blue butterfly or even, I mean, just local insects, you'd be surprised. And then you get your local birds, right? So it's all kind of
Well, we had that
important.
problem with the city hall because that was an issue there that Mayor Light was
Right,
telling
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
He had one type of native plant, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the state interceded on that.
So I think that's great. Everybody okay with that? Mr.
Commissioner Lamb, just point of clarification on that one. So I'm looking at that IM measure for landscaping.
M44.
Yes, and so you're really saying require it, don't evaluate it?
No.
Okay, what's that?
Yeah, require it. I mean, you know, we are so past that. It's really, California needs to, I mean,
You don't wanna
Redondo Beach
evaluate
needs to
anymore?
get with the rest of the state. I don't mean to sound that way, but it's true.
Okay.
You know, it's just require it.
Right.
And it's not like you're.
Chair Hazeltine?
Pardon me?
Do you support this?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
And it's not like we
Tell us how you
only get
feel.
5 plants. I mean, really, there are thousands of plants to choose from, you know? And they're beautiful, by the way.
Okay. Shall I move
Go
on?
on.
Okay. Reduce air pollution, add IMLU 42, add to implementation action 42, It says, it currently says continue to use the climate action plan. I've read the climate action plan. We've done so many things already that are not in that climate action plan, right? And so it really needs to be updated to reflect what we've done, but also add to it. There's been new developments at the state level, there's been new ideas coming forth. So, this whole idea of a sponge city, and, as I move forward, you're gonna.
Do you remember the date on our current climate action plan? Is it
21?
Is it 2020 or 20?
No, 20, I can tell you in just a second. I've got it right here.
Because I know, I remember working on it, but it was
Okay, so it's,
16 or no,
2017?
2017. Okay, yeah, I thought it was, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's getting stale.
That's
Wow,
getting
yeah.
stale, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, we
so-
need to do that, don't we? Everybody's okay with that? We don't want anything stale? Okay, next.
Okay, all right. Policy 5.6, reduce GHG, add new implementation action, develop a heat island mitigation plan that includes guidelines for cool roofs, cool pavements, strategically placed shade trees. This goes to you, Holly. And require all new developments and major rehabilitation. Now, we're getting into the weeds and the rest of this, but what do you think, guys? Should we add?
I think this looks
heat-
really good. Where would we
Heat
add
island
this?
mitigation plan? So it would be a new implementation
Oh, yeah. mhm.
under reduce GHG.
And I'd like to add that I've seen this, right, in other cities. So it's really just,
It's-
again, bringing us up to date as a city.
Right,
And
right.
I bet that Planning Director Weiner probably had it in, like, your last city, right? I mean, you guys are probably way ahead of us.
Yeah, we had something similar to this, and I think it works putting it in the implementation plan. It's not a policy per se, but in terms of implementing the larger greenhouse gas reduction policy, it provides the level of specificity. And if we decide that we need to amend this for some reason that's a little more flexible in modifying the implementation plan, but yeah, I think this is good.
Excellent,
Okay.
perfect. Okay, everybody
I'm glad you
okay with
support
that?
it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. we
I don't
support
understand
all.
it all, but I am okay with it.
Okay, we have 5.8.
Okay. And Chair Hazeltine, you can correct me if the language on this isn't correct. Add to implementation LU 45, conduct an accurate count, this goes to Holly, right? Conduct an accurate count of tree acreage, so percentage, and establish a tree coverage target. So I'm saying sort of two different things here. I think they're supposed to be the same, but I think the idea is that you actually, and Holly, I don't know, do you want to come up and talk about it? That we understand what our tree canopy coverage is.
Right,
And
so
then
we-
we set a target
Right.
of increasing.
So
And
I
Yes,
I
yes.
think that the wording is really good. If we could put in the wording, tree canopies. So I tried to get a hold of Pasadena Public Works to see what their tree canopy is, because they have a huge one, right? And I also tried to get a hold of some federal agencies, and I haven't yet got a tree coverage. But if we could figure out what our percentage is, so let's just say we're at 15%. I don't know what we're at. But a lot of cities like Pasadena are probably close to 30%. So if we could find where we want our urban forest to get to, it would be really nice to have it in the general plan. So a number, I believe it's 30 or 35%. Is that right?
I don't know what the desired percentage is, but But I do know that there's technology out there that allows you to use aerials where you can do these calculations and
Right.
to assess where we're at currently.
Yeah,
And then,
and I don't think actually that the state's requirement or request that we do 10% per, what is it? I wrote it down. I don't think that's actually enough. I think it's moving too slow. So that's why I would like to get a current tree canopy and then have, reach for the stars kind of on this, so could we look like Pasadena? That'd be great. And so if I could I'll find that somehow.
I have an answer for you.
Yes, you know it.
I know it.
God, why didn't I call you?
City of Pasadena contains 6.588 square miles, or over 28% of the city of Pasadena is covered by tree canopy.
Okay.
28%.
28%. So let's because I don't know if you guys have ever driven around there, but they literally have signs that say, tree capital of the world or whatever. They're so proud of it. It's all over on all the streets.
So should we shoot for 35?
Let's
You gotta
shoot
beat
for, let's shoot
Pasadena,
for
I was
28.
29%.
Let's shoot for, we want to do better for them than them, so 29.
you think?
We want to be better than Pasadena. Okay. So what do we think, Sheila? What do you think? 29, let's put a percentage.
Go with Mr. Light.
Mr. Light,
29%.
Sounds good to me.
Just randomly picked it.
Yeah. Well, now that we know Pasadena, everybody knows Pasadena. If you drive through that area, it's pretty amazing.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay, so can we get a tree canopy percentage put on that, Sheila's wording there?
And Director Weiner. Yeah.
we can do that. And I think there's ways that the city could encourage this or promote it, either through the city's actions of planting trees, or as a condition of projects that there be a requirement that they plant a certain number of trees.
Right.
For example, from my time in Carmel, if as a condition for all development applications, there was a certain ratio of trees they had to plant on the site. So we could take a look at doing that to get trees on private property
Right.
and public property.
Right. Carmel's another example. When you think of that, it just, my mind pictures trees, and the ocean, but it's just beautiful.
Golf greens.
Pardon me?
Golf greens.
Golf greens, yeah.
Redondo currently is 10%.
Okay. Oh my God, we're at 10%.
10%.
That's what it says here.
You are amazing.
I'll forward that to you.
How did you get that? I was looking everywhere.
This thing called the interwave.
Obviously need to check you first. Okay, so to go from 10% to 29%, something like that, as our tree canopy.
Google has
And
that
then
analytics for it.
and I think that fits in here, you guys, because when I first started looking at this thing, what I did was I Googled, what the heck is a general plan? And I'm like, what is this? It truly is a wish list. It's kind of like, where do we see our city going? What are our goals? And so we have to be kind of specific. In the next 20 years, wouldn't it be great if we could actually get up to 29%? That's kind of, I think, that's a nice little dream.
Wishful, but
Yeah.
yeah. I do have a question. So what does it take? There are different trees. Some have large canopies, some don't. So is it important to specify particular trees that have broad canopies?
Or is there a term for how much more shade a deciduous tree does rather than a palm tree, which doesn't really give you any shade,
they're not
frankly.
really good.
Right, 17.45.
There probably is, and I think as we get into the actual implementation of developing an ordinance or a program,
Yeah.
that's where we can get into the specifics. And
Okay.
I know there's like upper canopy versus lower and different ways of rating the canopy diameters.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so this establishes a goal by which that analysis, the purpose of the analysis, and then the implementation to achieve the goal. So
Right.
the goal,
We'll never reach it if we do palm trees.
yeah, right. Well, and I'm wondering what that,
No, they're
what
real low, you can't.
what that 28% that Pasadena, is that a count of number of trees or area of the city that is under a tree canopy, or what
The
is
area-
that?
It's the area. It says that over 28% of the city, over 28% it says, of Pasadena is covered by tree canopy. And
Okay,
then it
can
says over
that, so we could
18%.
specify that in here?
You can, it would be the area of the canopy
29% tree
coverage.
canopy.
Okay,
So-
great.
And we can work with this. The commission's given us general guidance on this one. We can come back with something crafted that
And
satisfy it.
to, beat a dead horse, it's really, really important for temperature control in a
Right.
city. And my son-in-law sits in front of Fanny's and PCH and he goes, they need a tree. I'm like roasting. It's 95 in front of Fanny's on PCH. And really, if there were trees there, it just would bring the temperature down,
There you go.
Yeah, so excellent. Everybody agree with that? We're good?
Yes.
We can move on?
Yes?
29% tree canopy.
Okay.
Yes.
Got a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Bob Pinsler. One of the things to realize about reaching a canopy level like that is that much of that will be private property. So how a city incents people, provides incentives isn't a real word, to include where we
Trees.
live, where Sheila and I live, in the tall and skinnies, many people have taken out all the trees. If you look at my house, I've got trees all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
And there needs to be an incentive for people to reestablish trees
Right.
and to assist, for example, with roots going to driveways and all the things that are. But speaking of PCH, one of the issues there is that's Caltrans.
Oh,
Right.
So having a street tree and putting a procedure in place to trim the street trees would be an argument between the city and Caltrans.
Right.
And if I could say, it's really a fight worth having, because if
I
we
agree.
go along I think the most, if you look all along Pacific Coast Highway at the various cities, because I'm stuck in traffic all the time, El Segundo, El Porto, all the way down, they have really done a really great job of planting trees. I mean, I was just driving down Sepulveda. They've got new trees on all of their parkways. So when I was a kid, there was a ton of trees on PCH. They've been literally taken down and you've got cement placed in their place. Now there's no place. I mean, I'm like, well, you could be a guerrilla gardener, and if, Gabi, can you plant a tree in front of Fanny's? He's like, well, no, there's cement. So it's like,
Well, if you look in Westchester, for example, where
they've done a great job.
One of the things is they took out many, many ficus trees, because ficus and sidewalks are death.
Well,
Yeah,
we
sure.
hopefully are smarter than that now, because I will
One
tell
would
you,
hope.
along that road, you would have had to put hiking boots to get up the 4
Yes.
feet where the cement was broken. So yeah, hopefully we've learned we don't need to plant something that amazing and huge and breakable.
But
It
to
breaks.
reach the number you're hoping for, I mean, Grant is a good example of street trees. It's great.
Beautiful.
Along there.
Yes.
But to provide an incentive
Yeah.
to a private property owner, we on our streets had a fight or the problem over a beautiful old eucalyptus tree that got taken down because of a development. And we watched this thing come down, and the sadness of the neighborhood was just palpable.
Right,
And
right.
we have a tree across the street from us that if that thing ever goes, we're gonna chain ourselves to that tree to keep it from going down.
Okay.
Because that is too beautiful a tree, and we need to preserve those things.
Right. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Craig.
To add on to what Mr. Pinsler was saying, on that stat that I pulled up for Pasadena, it actually says, so of that, the city being 28%, it said over 18% of Pasadena's tree canopy is within the public right of way.
Okay.
So that means 82% of that would be
Yes.
privately. So
Confirms.
that gets back to his point, we
Yeah.
have to incentivize it.
And we have, as a planning commissioner, we've addressed that with, planting trees in properties that have come in front of us, so we have, but one property at a time is going to take us forever. So we really need to have a plan here. Okay, great.
We need a movement.
Yes, we need a movement.
Johnny Appleseed.
Okay, so just moving along here, environmental sustainability, add new policy, develop a green infrastructure plan. Okay, so green infrastructure is an approach to wastewater management. So the question I have on this is, does it belong here or does it belong under wastewater management? That's probably recommendation by the professionals here. But let me go on. Green infrastructure is an approach to water management that protects, restores, and mimics the natural water cycle. Green infrastructure is effective, economical, and enhances community safety and quality of life. It means planting trees, restoring wetlands, rather than building costly new water treatment plant. And then the implementation action is update the municipal code to include regulations for green roofs, vertical meadows, retention wells, ponds, rain gardens, curb cuts for bioswales, and permeable surfaces. So the curb, also just a note here, we have bioswales already, I think, but this is curb cuts. This is one of our involved community members, curb cuts for bioswales. That means cut the curb so that the water can come into the bioswale that's in, whether it's on the parkway or wherever. So these two go together. That new policy and the new implementation action. The question on this, one, do you support it? Two, does it belong in an environmental sustainability? And if it does it need to appear again in the wastewater management section, or just leave it here in environmental sustainability?
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the open space and conservation.
Yeah.
There's definitely the water management goal is a good home for,
Yeah.
The green infrastructure plan and that implementation measure.
Okay.
Specifically.
Okay.
These are kind of like-minded, but, let's take a quick look at the land use. Yeah, and then you've got environmental sustainability, which is where you were looking originally.
Right, there's a lot of crossover here.
Yeah.
So, a green infrastructure plan, right, it could be in either place, could be in both places.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of policies in all our elements. And if one topic area kind of is covering it, we might not think to look in the other one. I'm just telling you how we're doing our best to cover all the bases, but it seems like environmental sustainability, we've got a lot of similar policies here. Maybe it's best in that, and land use element kind of gets a lot of the, attention. So I think that'd probably be a good place for it.
A good spot for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A perfect example that I brought up before where curb cuts would be like a no-brainer. So at the Esplanade, on every avenue, we have 2 huge planters on every one of those. And there we have a gutter that water runs on when it rains. It would be just so natural for the water to run into those planters. That's a perfect example. There's a slight downhill, ever so slight. Perfect. Okay, well, I think that's great. Everybody agree with that one? Yes. Okay.
Okay, so this is civic engagement. I'm adding a new policy. It might be redundant because I had it somewhere else, right?
Yeah, we talked about civil, yeah.
So maybe we just broaden the first one.
To include environmental.
Yes. Let's just broaden the first one.
On the first page, 311, civic engagement.
Yep, 311.
311, yeah. Public education and outreach. And this is for land use goal compatibility. I would just broaden that out to include all the, to sustainability. Instead of, would you agree with that, not to be redundant?
Maybe it wouldn't go under the land compatibility though, Sheila, would it?
Maybe just go under,
Yeah, maybe in environmental sustainability.
Yeah, just you add that where you,
the reason it's there is because there was already there's already a policy.
oh, okay.
Okay, so there's already a policy, 3.11, on civic engagement, right? I don't know, do you want to take that out and put it somewhere else?
I think that civic engagement in 311 is not it's not targeting sustainability.
Right.
It's, kind of a general on development projects.
Exactly.
And so maybe another civic engagement initiative on sustainability, environmental sustainability.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you've got it right,
Okay.
but we put it in that environmental sustainability.
Okay. And the last but not least is historic preservation. Okay. Add to policy LU 7.1. Okay, so it says encourage, we're suggesting to change the language to strengthen the city's objective identification of potentially historic buildings, resources, landmarks, or historic districts in residential, commercial, public institutional, and industrial zones. Okay, so we're strengthening the way we identify these historic places. Okay, that's first. Okay, and then we add this implementation action. Let's see. Then we're adding this 7.1 to implementation action number 60. So this was not already in 60. And, right? Okay, so 60 says update, expand, and periodically update the citywide historic properties survey. So LU 7.1 is not listed there. So we're asking to have it listed as an implementation action for 7.1. Okay. Then we're adding this new implementation action. So we're adding actually 2 more implementation actions for historic preservation, LU 7.1. Develop the city processes and ordinances to objectively designate historic buildings, resources, landmarks, and historic districts. So, so what this means is, what this would look like would be a consultant not tied to a particular project, right? Often what we get is we get an historic evaluation that's been paid for by the project. Okay, this would be an objective consultant hired by the city to identify
historic buildings.
Right.
Okay, meaning homes and everything.
Everything.
Okay.
Everything.
So instead of, what probably happens now is we kind of rely on a homeowner to say, I'd kind of like my house to be designated historic. It's hardly anything ever goes in there. Is that kind of the?
Right, or no, I don't want my building to be designated historic because I want to sell it and get the money out of it.
Right.
So
Right.
that's not benefiting the city as a whole in their effort
doing an
to
objective survey.
identify historic buildings.
Right.
When it's, because it's left up to their own motivation.
Yeah, and we have a lot of homes that are, so beautiful from like the 20s and.
Right. And so the next implementation action is protecting and preserving historic buildings, that the city will develop processes and ordinances to protect and preserve historic buildings. So this really strengthens the historic preservation
aspect of our
goal, right?
general plan, right? Any questions on that, you guys?
What do you think?
Anything?
Are we okay?
I like it.
We like it?
Okay.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's really great.
Yeah, I would say with the policy 7.1, I kind of like how the current one also has,
Yeah.
it says for the city to encourage voluntary designation. So maybe we just add this policy as a separate one and keep that original, because I think we're doing both. We're trying to strengthen the city's objective identification, but then we also want to encourage the voluntary
Sounds good.
designation.
Sure. Instead of
Okay.
replace existing,
Yeah.
it would just be additional, yeah?
Yeah, or maybe we can just add it into that one policy, the two
Okay,
statements.
combine,
Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
because I think both work, and I think you actually get more from the voluntary, like through the Mills Act and other incentives than you would
Okay.
if we were to go out and impose it on
Right.
a property owner.
Right. That's true. Are we down at the bottom there, Sheila?
We are.
This took
We
no
are.
time at all. What were you talking about? Go ahead.
So special policy areas, SPA 5A, 5B, and SPA 5C. So this is mid PCH, I think. Is it mid? Okay, so this is mid PCH. Okay, so in the implementation action for this area, I think actually for the special policy areas, it says determine which policy areas should have priority, right? This is saying,
See which one? Oh, second.
this is, in this implementation action for this special areas, this is saying, identify these special areas as a priority. Okay, so the implementation, the narrative next to special policy areas, it says, determine, right, or, determine which should be the priority. Here, we're saying, identify these areas as a priority, and establish new parking ratio and increased FAR standards as a short-term action item. Okay, so this is really from Mayor Light. His argument here, and I would agree with you, I would agree with him. This area should be a priority at this time, and should, and as Planning Manager Scully has said, you could use the ACAP as a model, right? Not the specifics, but you could use the ACAP as a model. And if you put the FAR standards and the parking ratios in now, then it would be ready for the further changes that need to be made. So that's the argument. This really has to, you're the experts on this. So.
I'm a little confused on that one, because is that by taking parking and FAR out, and just looking at that, isn't that kind of putting the cart
Might
before
be.
the horse?
Might be.
So what we want is we want something, okay, Pacific Coast Highway needs work, the whole entire thing from border to border. It needs to be looked at the same way that Artesia Aviation were looked at.
Yeah.
So I'm not real comfortable about just addressing those two things and then thinking things are going to be beautiful all of a sudden. We need to have a plan as in the same way that we had the Artesia corridor, plan. And I don't know where that wording goes in. I'm not real crazy about just pulling those two things out. As much as I understand, because I've been
I sort of
harping
understand
about
what he meant.
beautifying PCH for years now. I'm not sure that we want to just hit it with putting that as the action.
So I took a stab at rewording this a little bit.
Okay, great.
Identify these special policy areas as a priority and consider establishing new development standards that encourage revitalization or that promote revitalization
Yes.
along this corridor, something to that
So
effect.
put PCH in our, it's a priority. We need to address PCH in the city. So, I mean, what I was talking to Sheila about today, I mean, you guys, some people start at the northern border of California and take PCH all the way down to the southern border, I mean, when you get into Redondo Beach, we need a little help, right? So I just think that some other cities, local cities around here have done a way better job at beautifying their Pacific Coast Highway.
What's
So-
an example of that?
What's an example of that? Well, I kind of honestly, Manhattan Beach has done a great job. They've got plants along all of the whole, in the center, they've planted trees in the whole, all the islands. They've, Westchester was brought up. They've planted trees along the whole entire, on both sides of
So
their
this is about
sidewalks.
vegetation then, not parking or,
No, but the point being, Rob, that we need to address Pacific Coast Highway.
I think that is your point, is not just parking and.
No,
your
it's
point is
everything.
Not
It's-
parking.
Yeah,
and-
and Planning Director Weiner took out parking and,
okay.
yeah, so it's like, let's beautify PCH the same way that we did. Artesia's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's really gotten.
It's much better.
Yeah.
Let me just sort of see if I can channel Mayor Light. What he actually.
Careful.
So he was thinking that now that we're making these changes, the FAR and the parking standards we're making these changes for Artesia, why not just do it for PCH? And I think the difference, what you're bringing up is context, right? We already have a context in which these changes are going to be made for Artesia, right? But we don't have that context yet.
Right. And we also, Sheila,
But can we do it? I don't know. It's up, you would.
Yeah, that's actually something, so when we met a few weeks ago, I had that list of priorities from the implementation plan. And I had actually identified this as a priority. Maybe it wasn't in the implementation plan. Because I think I've just heard it from various sources. We really need to kind of emulate what we did for the ACAP along Pacific Coast Highway.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same treatment. But whatever is needed to encourage some investment and revitalization and beautification of that area, which would probably include some adjustment to the development standards.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, because I also have a problem. We still need, I mean, thanks to Sheila's help, I think basically we don't have to meet again. No, she did so much work. But
Just an hour or
we
two.
still don't know what, I still don't have a visualization of the Artesia Aviation new suggested FAR, and I really need to see that. Okay, before I just say, yeah, that sounds great, I don't know what 1.5 5, whatever you guys decided, what the GPAC decided on. I mean, I need to see that. So how can I put that far on PCH when I don't even know what it looks like on Artesia? You know, that would be really, really difficult for me to agree to something with.
It seems to me you don't want to really recreate the wheel here. You got ACAP as a great model. I like that here. Why not say that same process should be done on PCH?
Yeah, very similar,
and just
right?
keep it that language. And then we can, then whoever did that good work can figure out what makes sense.
Right.
And I think the needs are going to be different at PCH. than
Yeah,
that.
that's the issue right
Yes.
there, is that it doesn't really, I mean, we had a very specific, focused, objective, well, and starting point with Artesia.
Right.
The idea is, here's what it is today, what do we want it to be, and therefore we move toward it. We had quite a discussion on PCH in the GPAC, and some people were like, well, let's make it conform, let's make it all commercial. And there wasn't a lot of support for that, because they said, you have a lot of, historic residences, people who've lived there, and houses that have been people's families for 100 years, and things like that. And there was a convincing sense in the discussion that part of what makes Redondo Beach a funky beach town is the fact that we have PCH and this mix of uses all on Pacific Coast Highway, which is an iconic throughway.
Very good point.
You drive in and it isn't a bunch of developed, shopping strip malls with, Popeyes and, Pottery Barn and whatever, which you find anywhere.
Right.
Instead, it's funky houses, it's places like, our French restaurant down there. You've got Ragin' Cajun across the street, and you have the Cozy Cafe. It's funky.
The Cozy Cafe.
Yeah, Burrito, El Burrito Jr. I mean, it's.
Oh, yeah.
Natucci Plumbing.
Yeah. No, the plumbing is not there. It's the apparel store.
Tuck shop.
Right, tuck
Very
shop. Yeah.
good points.
So that was the
we need to
thought
address
process.
it.
So the question, it could be a lot more beautiful. Trees. All that sort of thing. But I don't think we're trying to accomplish the same thing there as we were when we're addressing tattoo shops and
Well, it's different.
massage parlors and smoke shops. And,
Artesia's one thing, and PCH is 2 blocks from the beach, so we have to be very mindful of that. It's got to still look beachy.
Different vibe.
And so I can't agree to that all of a sudden we put in a 1.5 FAR.
I would agree with Mr. Light, Commissioner Light, in that it's the model of ACAP.
Yes.
Right? It's not the specifics.
Right.
Right? And I just recently read about a town, and I can't recall, maybe it's up north, just the cutest little town, but they kept the houses on the commercial, right? How we have the houses on the commercial, in the commercial area, or maybe we reversed it, whatever we've done to it down in there in PCH, right? You've got that whole line of houses. Yeah. One was a guitar shop for a while. Yeah. But they had restaurants, they kept the house, but they had it as a restaurant, right? Or a cafe, right?
They did that in Laguna, I think. They've got a lot of homes there where they've kept the house.
Kept the house.
And then they've got a...
Right.
How do we word that? Do you have that we want to put Pacific Coast Highway in there?
Well, I think just direction to develop general design standards for Pacific Coast Highway. And I think it's actually identified. I don't have the general plan policies in front of me. But there's something that talks about what the vibe is of Pacific Coast Highway. It defines it, and for the city to explore ways to ensure high quality design. So we can take a closer look at that and try to be a little more specific with what it is we're trying to accomplish.
Beautification, that's there are so many places where we could put, mid-sized trees and not, put them back. Is what-
Okay, so
Okay.
are we good within this special I think we come to some
Understanding of how to
Understanding.
address it.
right? So we're all good on that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it, Sheila.
Is that it?
You did it.
Oh, no, there's one more.
But there's more.
But wait. But this is yours. This is yours. It was the implementation. It was the
Well,
implementation.
you got through your whole thing. I wasn't going to close the meeting. No, did you get through your stuff?
I got through my stuff.
Okay, so believe it or not, I had a list that Sheila attacked with. It's great. The only one I need to work on, you guys, is IMOS 11. Okay, and that addresses artificial turf. I'm going to start this by saying that not many weekends went by where Bill Brand did not text me a picture of artificial turf. Gail, what's going on here? We got to get rid of this. This is terrible. This is more artificial turf. So Sheila and I talk about this a lot, and the city of Los Angeles and the city of Pasadena right now are literally banning, they're in the process of banning it, so it has to go through their city council, et cetera. So the words banning artificial turf in cities is now becoming policy. And instead of us conducting a study that I think by the time we address this, there will be more than enough studies out there. We know that we need to fix this. So I would just like, my dream for the next 20 years would be that this would be just ban artificial turf. Okay, it just shouldn't be going in anymore. And in the city properties that it's gone in all the parkways, we've created a situation where you can't ask a homeowner to remove that, or you can't, as a city, we can't go remove everybody's artificial turf in the parkways, even though it's public parkway. So we've created a huge situation. I would just like, our goal as a city to ban it. So I would like that changed.
So instead of conduct a study, prohibit.
Just ban artificial turf.
Yeah, you don't really need a study for that, more likely.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
That's our dream. Okay.
But would that be retroactive to the people that have it have to get rid of it? Is that the goal?
No, it wouldn't. It's just like.
Big new construction.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the other thing is, it's really an education kind of thing. My neighbor across the street, huge massive eucalyptus tree, and in the parkway, he put artificial turf. And that shouldn't, first off, I think in the California code, if you go on the state code, it says that no artificial turf should be under tree drip lines. And a drip line is where the edge of the tree hits if you were to take it down. Well, that eucalyptus tree is massive. The whole that thing goes well out of that parkway. So we just lost one of the branches off it. It's just a matter of time before the whole thing falls down. I mean, it's not getting watered anymore. The soil's overheating. Any life that was in that soil is no longer there. But he thought, because I had a conversation with him when that massive limb came down, he really thought that he was doing the right thing. So I don't blame anybody for doing it, because they thought, with the drought and everything, that was the right thing to do. So no, they don't have to take it out. They just need to be educated that maybe there's a better alternative.
So I think I have some language for that one.
Okay, go
Maybe
ahead.
it'll be more impressive than my last one.
Okay.
Prohibit installation of new artificial turf and update the municipal code accordingly.
Perfect.
All right, there we go. So that way it's clear that it's for new and not that we're retroactively going back and requiring removal.
Right. How about also incentivize people who have artificial turf to replace it with natural?
Yeah, because I have mentioned, when I talked with city manager Mike, he said that he thinks that what's going to have to happen is we have some kind of an incentive program.
Yeah.
So some kind of exactly what Rob's talking about,
Kind of a
we'll be part of
buyback
it.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would just like to interject that I sent two pieces of information in the blue folder, and one of them you can read, it talks about, I think it's wastewater management, or it's the counties.
Yeah, the
Town-
West Basin Management District, yeah.
Right, West
Yes.
Basin is paying, it's paying large corporations who, large entities, commercial entities, that have put this fake grass on their property. They're paying them now to take it out. So it's in the, you can read it, or you can read about it. Incentivizing, shall we say.
Replacement, incentivizing replacement of our artificial turf.
Yes, incentivizing replacement. So it's coming.
Okay. I've got just a couple of, I don't know if this is too specific, but on LU 4-5, LU 4-6, it talks about health and vitality sections, activities. So do we want to be as specific, you know, Hermosa Beach had like activity centers where, you know, you would go up and you do some push-ups, some pull-ups, some step-ups. So in that, would we want to add activity centers? Another thing that because they talk about walkways and activity paths, is mileage signs. You know, those are really encouraging for people. So, you know, they know, okay, I walk a half mile kind of thing, or walking signage paths. Hermosa has it along there. At the Hermosa Pier, you can see a map of where if you walk here to here, it's that distance. So it's kind of adding signage that encourages people when they're out there. Because we're trying, in the general plan, it talks about encouraging outdoor activities.
So I would say for that, we could add it to the implementation plan. That's where it gets more specific as to what we're going to do to further the policy. But that said, I'm not sure. If you just want to give us general direction, we can try to incorporate it.
I found that in LU 4.5, LU 4.6, specifically where, let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see. Okay, Gil. I'm not as organized as Sheila. Sheila, you did such a great job. Geez, I didn't put it, I thought I put a page number. Shoot.
Are you looking for an IM?
I'm looking, yeah. Let me see. Okay, here we go. I think I found it. Nope. Shoot. Okay, LU 4.5. So in the, page 2-21, it says, increase physical activity. Establish new opportunities for outdoor and indoor recreation as part of a comprehensive, integrated, and interconnected network of spaces and facilities with a focus on underserved areas. So I'm thinking maybe it would go in there. Increase physical activity. I mean, it's kind of like this, you know, activity centers. Would it go there? That's
Okay, so in LU 4. Okay, so the idea that you're saying is both in increased physical activity and the connectivity, that you want to see those mileage marks, you want to see
Exercise,
exercise stations.
right, exercise stations.
Okay, so that would be actually in the implementation action?
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's a
For
better
the,
fit.
for those policies. So,
Okay, here we go.
right, so that was,
LU 4.
Let's see if there's.
right, so,
Five.
so I see 4.6. So it would just be adding a new implementation action, right?
Okay, here
And
we
then
go.
you would add 4.6 on there. I don't, health and vitality, right?
I'm looking at I've got the health and vitality
Yeah,
ones
right,
up, and I don't see one for.
right.
For that, so this would be a new
A new
implementation measure
action. Yeah,
for the policy 4.5 and 4.6.
yeah,
Right.
right.
To add, I mean,
Exercise station.
Activity
Exercise.
paths, mile markers,
Mile
signage on
markers.
activity paths such as mile markers, health and vitality in that section, activity stations for pull-ups, push-ups along walking paths. It's pretty common, you'll walk along and then there's a little area you can
Yeah,
exercise.
a little park course, they
Yeah,
call
they have,
those.
yes, exactly. And then
Like what we
you
have
walk
with
along and then there's a couple of different exercises.
So, yeah, it's almost like a plan for, adding mile markers, park courses on existing, let's say, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want it on the Esplanade, but.
No.
No,
But-
well, it's kind of funny because the bike path used to have really accurate one, and then throughout the years, the bike path kind of changed a little bit. It had a curve in it, then the curve went, and things like that. So it was painted right on the bike path. You've gone a quarter mile, you've
sure,
gone a
sure.
half mile, and then interesting enough, it goes all the way out to the end. So when I run in training, I can go all the way to the airport and know that I've run 15 miles. It's really actually a very cool thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but it's not too accurate in Redondo anymore, but,
Martin Broad.
what?
It's Martin Broad, I think it's named after.
Yes, exactly. They have markers like in Manhattan Beach, they've put literally plaques in the cement that say you've gone a quarter mile. So it really is encouraging. We're trying to encourage people to be active, be outside, look at those things.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can add an implementation measure, and if you would like, we could share it with you before the next
Okay.
meeting to make sure
Okay,
it's on
perfect.
point.
That's it. I don't have anything else. Does anybody have anything they'd like to see added, changed? Commissioner? No? Wow. Okay, let's see if I can do something. And not the July agenda. That won't work. Let me get the August agenda. Okay, so, gosh, we didn't even close the public hearing. So is there anybody else online there?
Just Mark Nelson.
Did Mark want to speak?
His hand is not raised.
Oh, he already did speak
Yeah,
on
he
this
spoke already.
anyhow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so,
It's to be continued. the
yeah,
public
so we
hearing.
don't close the public hearing, we keep it open. Do we have anything that you guys wanted to discuss with us, items from staff?
Should we have a motion to continue the public hearing?
Do we need a motion to continue? Okay, motion,
And the date is what, the 15th?
The
15th.
15th, and I would do
Let's do
it,
continue the public hearing
And a
to August
second?
15th.
a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so be it. Okay, items from staff, anything?
oh.
Yeah, I didn't
Well, I
think
think
so.
on this item, the commission should also vote on directing staff to incorporate the modifications to the policies.
Yeah.
So we had to, if you want to bring up the recommendation slide, there were two recommendations. One was to continue it, and the other was to vote on any modifications that you would like to see made. And it seemed like the commission, there was a consensus on all the ones that were proposed.
Right,
But you should vote on that
Okay.
part of the
can
record.
Can we get the wording on that? Do we need a,
I'm trying to,
can you pull that up, Sean?
yeah, I'm trying to,
Jamal, can you?
yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Consider and vote on recommendations on the proposed goals and policies. And you did reach consensus on all of them, and it could be.
Right, we did,
all
yes.
individually.
Uh-huh.
Does there have to be some blanket thing to direct staff to follow what we basically voted on?
I think just voting on it, making a motion to direct staff to make the modifications that were discussed at the meeting, and it's as simple as that.
Okay, could I get a motion then to direct staff to work on the recommendations that we made tonight at our meeting and all voted unanimously on?
Unanimously.
So I'll make a motion to direct staff to accept our recommendations that we all voted on, we all agreed to, and implement the recommendations on the proposed goals and policies.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So be it. Okay. And then we were going to, we already did the motion to continue the public hearing to the August 15th meeting.
And I will say, I took note of the discussion earlier. I know the commission wants some more information on the FAR issues, some examples.
Right.
So we will provide that at the next meeting.
Yeah, Artesia, the Beach City Health District, that would be helpful. That's really, there's a ton of open space up there, so that's confusing for me. Okay, perfect. Okay, can I get any items from the commission that they'd like to discuss with referrals to staff?
I have one.
Yes.
Just more of a calendar item. Are we going to be hearing the proposed amendment to the plan at the Galleria anytime soon? I know that's been continued every month, but I think there was a time frame that they had to get that approved by.
Yeah, do you know what that's at?
So we're targeting September. The consultant has almost completed the addendum to the EIR, so we're just waiting on that. But September is the target date. We will probably have a special meeting for that item because we have the general plan, the final review of that in the EIR. So we will probably schedule a special meeting for the Galleria.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then could I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.